Welcome to the February 23rd conservation meeting. Tonight's agenda has been hit with a lot of continuations, and we'll go through those once the meeting starts, but I'm going to start out with some information about the meeting and the protocol that this Conservation Commission will use during tonight's meeting. So hello, everyone. This is Chuck Tironi, Reading Conservation Administrator. Consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing requirements during the COVID-19 crisis, this Town of Reading Conservation Commission meeting is being held virtually via Zoom for audio and video participation of conservation commissioners, applicants, and their representatives and the public. During the meeting, myself or the chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, representatives, and members of the public individually and as needed. During the commission meeting, the chair will be the only one to permit video sharing. These controls are in place to ensure tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, Vice Chair Martha Moore will conduct a roll call vote to confirm members are present and that they can hear. Martha?
Okay, and just to let you know, Nika Scanlon is on. So once I do the roll call, I'll happily turn the chairmanship over to Nika. Andrew?
Andrew Driven, present.
Brian?
Brian Bowe, present.
Carl? Carl, you need to unmute.
I think I am.
Now you are.
Yep.
Oh, Carl Squinty present.
Nika Scanlon?
Hi, thank you. Yes, present. Thanks, Martha.
And Martha Moore present.
I was printing out a couple things and then it became waiting by the printer yelling at it. So I apologize for the
Sure, we're on.
being recorded.
So, yeah, not recorded yet. Thank you, everyone. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Also, be aware that folks may be able to see you. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by this recording. All of the material for this meeting are available on the Conservation Division site. I recommend that commissioner members, the public, and the agenda
Okay.
sorry about that. All commission members, and let me see, where was I at? And the public follow the agenda as posted on the Reading Conservation webpage unless otherwise noted. However, because this meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise applicants in particular that the commission cannot discuss or consider documents which are not previously posted. Information may, however, be presented orally. Similarly, members of the public are encouraged to provide written public comment, but should understand that not all applicants nor the commission members may be able to see any written comments during the course of this meeting. Before we get started on tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business to ensure that accurate meeting minutes are taken. For any response, please wait until the chair or the conservation administrator yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After the commissioners make their remarks, and these remarks have been addressed by the applicant, the chair, or the conservation physician. So back to you, Ms. Scanlon.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Good to see everybody here virtually. Let's get into it. Our first hearing tonight.
Unmute.
Let me see if Carl is unmuted.
I don't know why it keeps doing that. New computer. Carl Squinty in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. Okay. Thank you very much. The second hearing on the agenda tonight. Okay, and the third hearing for the night is 56 Gray Coach Lane. Do I have that correct, Chuck? And this one,
Yep.
Well, at the applicant's request, was requested to be continued to March 9.
I move to continue the hearing on 56 Gray Coach Lane to March 9th.
I'll
Seconded.
second it.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay. Moving right along. The next hearing we have is 35 Pitman Drive. So at this point, Chuck, if the applicant's here, I'll read the,
They are. I'm bringing Dave in and
Okay.
the applicant, K Peng Ma. Okay, and we're all set now.
great. So at this point, I'm going to reopen the public hearing on a request for determination of applicability filed by Quan Ma and Kapeng Ma for 35 Pitman Drive under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for removing the existing in-ground pool, disposing of the pool walls, line and liner, and to fill in the existing hole with clean fill, loam and seed at the surface, and replace the existing slab and walkway by the house. The project is within the buffer zone of a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. 01867, and on the Conservation Division page under the current project, 35 Pitman Drive, Assessor's Map 39, Lot 103, RGB file number 2021-19. So since the last meeting on the 9th, I believe we received an updated plan. There's a new sketch and new details. So if we could just, Chuck, if you're able to pull that up.
Sure thing.
And I took a look at it. I only had one question on that, and that was, what are the actual dimensions of the new patio to be installed?
It's going to replace exactly what is there, which is roughly 23 feet coming off the back of the house wide, and then going towards the back about 12 feet off of the fence, which makes it about 4 feet, a little over 30 feet off the back of the house.
Okay, and it's going to be poured concrete?
Correct.
And I'm gonna-
23 by 30, is that correct?
Yeah, right about that.
Okay.
I'm going to open it up to the rest of the commission, see if they have any questions on it.
I think we can't yet see the plan. We're still looking at the menu. Can you
Really?
get the plan up, Chuck?
Sorry about that. I was wondering if that would work, but it didn't. Okay, there you go.
Ah, much better.
Great.
The yellow portion is existing. We're not looking to change the size at all. More or less just replace it with new concrete. So we have a nice patio as opposed to the old finished concrete once we demolish and fill in the pool.
Was the applicant proposing any landscaping around inside the fence?
Just doing loam and seed where the existing pool and patio that's coming out. Aside from that, they have flower gardens along the back fence that they're not going to disturb. That's going to remain.
Okay. Any other questions from conservation members?
I have no questions.
Okay. Not hearing any. Are there any questions from the public? If you're participating virtually. If you could go to reactions, I believe.
Yes, and use the raise hand function.
And not seeing any. Chuck, do you have any final questions or comments?
Yeah, for Dave, when is this project taking place? How long will it take? And as part of the conditions, I need to conduct a pre-activity meeting once erosion control is in place.
I assume that it's the whole thing will probably happen within a week. It'll be removed, filled in, and loamed and seeded. I imagine the erosion control you would like to see in place until grass has rooted itself, so there won't be any erosion of the loam. So really, that's just going to be the longest process of the seed growing.
Sure, and I had a note.
Spring.
Had a note that said that you'll be using mulch sock.
Usually
that's
use
what
hay wattle, but you would mention that you like the
Yep.
mulch bark. I mean, it really makes no difference to me.
Yeah. Yeah, the hay wattle is not something that we usually allow. So the mulch sock is much better. And
That's fine by me.
when is you said the spring this is going to happen? Are you going to be able to do the patio at the same time?
Yes.
Do you know approximately how many yards of cement that is? And
I can calculate that real quick right now. It's 23. About 8.5.
8.5, okay. And do you plan on having a washout station somewhere outside the 100-foot buffer zone or towards the front driveway, or is that needed at all?
We can. I don't know that it's really necessary, but if that's something you want to see, we can put a washout bag towards the front yard and remove it from site.
Sure. I'm gonna put that in as a condition. Is this being pumped or wheelbarrowed over? Or how are you getting the concrete?
We'll pour it from the driveway, and then we have power barrels that we'll put it in place with.
Okay, that's all I had. Those are just questions I need for the order. Thank you.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay. Not seeing any hands raised, not having any other questions. I will entertain a motion on this RDA.
So negative determination of applicability would allow them to proceed with the project, correct?
Correct.
So I will move that we vote a negative determination of applicability for this project.
I'll second that.
Andrew Driven, Chuck.
So just to make this a little bit cleaner, we want to you want to approve the project, checking off N3, but not checking off. I think it's N2 for the verification of the wetland line. That's all. So with that amendment, we can proceed. You don't have to say it. You can say so amended or however you want to do that.
As amended,
Yeah.
I make that motion.
There's
As
second.
amended, I second it.
All right, Andrew Driven, I'm in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Carl Sacconi in favor.
Martha Moore in favor?
And Nika Scanlon in favor. Okay. A negative
Okay.
determination is what you need to proceed with the project and proceed with the work. So Chuck, what's their waiting period and before having the
So
green light? Yeah.
There's a 10-day appeal period, but I'll have that out to you next week. But if you're starting in the spring, that shouldn't be an issue. Just make sure you read and follow the conditions that are on the last page. And like I said, one of the conditions will be 72 hours before the project starts, you'll contact us, but that doesn't include Fridays or weekends.
Okay. Do
Okay.
you have questions
Thanks,
here?
Dave.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Chuck, on my agenda, the next hearing was 34 Deborah.
That's right. 34 Deborah Drive.
Okay, let me just find that. So, so I will read that out as you get that going. So we are going to continue with the public hearing on a notice of intent for 34 Deborah Drive filed by Patrick Silva under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, MGL Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1, for constructing an addition onto an existing single-family house within buffer zones of a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office at 16 Lowell Street in Reading, and on the Conservation Division page under the current project, 34 Deborah Drive, Assessor's Map 38, Lot 97, DEP file number 270-0756.
So I've made Pat Silver a co-host. There you go, Pat. Do you want to just update us on the project? Would you like me to bring up the plans?
Sure, that'd be great.
Okay, just give me a minute. There you go.
Thank you, Chuck. Just so you know, the builder for the project, the contractor is Chris Restano, and he's also on the call tonight where Jack can't make it. So I'm not sure that people are gonna have specific questions for him, but he's on as well to help out if need be. So the update, I guess, is that 2 Saturdays ago, 4 members of the commission were able to come out and do a second walkthrough of the property, looking again for those wetland flags, and then talking about where the bioretention cell was located and how that was going to affect drainage and things like that. We also had a conversation about the shed and about that clearing of land way in the back. That was, the mystery, I guess, at the beginning, and then, people were checking in for that. So since then, I know that at least one neighbor had brought up several concerns that Chuck let me and Jack know about. And I had requested that Jack do a little bit more work for me, which he did. He added a little bit more, or I should say added a few more features to the drainage onto the map. The rock drip trench on the front and back, as well as I think one adjustment to the actual bioretention cell as well. And then he also conducted an analysis of the rain garden itself, which he submitted to Chuck regarding a whole bunch of stuff that I am not familiar with explaining, but it essentially indicated that it would handle up to the 100-year mark, I guess, which you all probably know more about than I do. But that essentially brings us back to today. The only thing that has happened other than that for the project's process moving forward is that the ZBA did give us an approval at the last meeting last week with the conditions that you folks also approved, as well as the select board in regards to the additional driveway.
Sure. Getting a little feedback. So I just wanted to make everyone aware where it says 94. I'd asked Jack to make sure that any rainwater or runoff that goes into the cell here would discharge and be delivered into this forested or this tree area. And I wanted to make sure that it didn't go to the left into this abutting property. So Jack added this little berm right here, and it says 94. So it keeps the shoulder on that, any water coming out of there for probably like 7 feet. They moved this shed. This might be part of something that had happened before, but just want to let you know that the existing shed is being relocated outside the 35-foot line. This pathway, to my recollection, is new, but it is outside the 35-foot line. I did ask Andrew McNichol, who's the staff planner, about this change, and he said, as far as his regulations go for, was it zoning that you went to? Because he's in charge of others also. I think it was zoning, that they needed this in place to this side door. So that was, I guess, a requirement. So I wanted to just make sure that commission's aware that that was needed, and it was asked for by another commission. This is the 2-foot wide drip trench, and this is typical of Jack Sullivan, where he's doing that area. So there's been nothing, asked in this area here, or actually talked about in this area here from Jack or the applicant in this area either. But I know some commission members had gone out to the site, and I'm going to turn the floor over to them. I don't think there's any other updates that I know of. I know that Ms. Cooper was concerned about runoff in the driveway. So her concern was that this was a lawn before, so the rain that hit that would be absorbed into the ground. And now she felt like the rain would collect and start coming down the driveway in sheet flow. And I guess it either goes into this area here or over the side, but it gets into the detention ponds. If it goes to the side, it's going to be infiltrated just as it was before. But into this infiltration pond, the stormwater calculations came in late. I don't think anyone has a chance to review them, so I'm not going to verify that it meets the 100-year storm standards, because I actually don't know that. But once it goes in here, it would infiltrate, and if there's too much rainwater, it would discharge into the back. So the treatment train that Jack has come up with delivers the water either into the ground or in back to the wetland area, at least within 35 feet of the actual wetland. So now I'll turn it over to commission members or back to the chair.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck. At this point, I'll ask commission members, based on these new updated plans, if they have any questions. Well, I'll just check. Brian, if you could unmute, please.
Yep. I'm fine with the changes in the front of the house. I guess one consideration, one possibility is to have the driveway be pervious. I think the numbers at the top of this plan is like 600 square feet for that. So doing the math, that's 30. So that would be about 10.5% rather than the 12 and change. If that made enough of a difference, people cared about it, we could ask for that change. I personally don't think it's necessary. I could go along with it. The remaining issue I really have is that peninsula of grass beyond the wetland lines. Well, before I get to that, so we did look at the flags. There was some concern about a number of them. When we were there the second time doing measurements and what have you, we weren't that worried about it because they wouldn't affect the proposed work because they're far enough back. So this is another place where we wouldn't want to verify the flags, but I don't think that's an issue in this one anyway. So the remaining issue I have is this peninsula of grass going out at an angle. It's clearly beyond the wetland flags. It's been there a long time. Pat, when we were there, you pointed that out, and then I've gone and looked at the area photography for years back, and it's always been there. However, it shouldn't be. So I'd like to see that minimum be let go and stop mowing it and go back to nature. I know that in an ideal world, that fill would actually be taken out and the area would be made to go back to the grade around it. I think that's a lot to do, but minimum to let it go back to nature. So I don't know if you have anything you want to say about that, Pat, or anybody, but that's my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Is there, Pat, do you have a response to that? Otherwise, I'm gonna.
Just that I wouldn't argue with that at all. I agree when looking at the map and when I spoke to the folks that came out to my house, that it certainly doesn't fit right. The kind of the general response that it's always been that way, I understand doesn't quite fly with this with this body, so I understand that. So if it's, I would very much not like to start ripping it out and then letting it grow back. But if it's just letting it grow back, I don't think you're gonna have much of a fight for me on that. It's a concession I'm willing to make, just like the shed.
Okay. Andrew, your hand is up as well.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear. So I mean, my concerns are similar. I'm not comfortable with the wetland flags, but most of them are irrelevant for the project. So I mean, I don't know if one thing we could do is just keep flags 1 through 4 that are relevant, or 2 through 4 really, since one's not even on the property, and have like Jack remove the rest. I don't know how that works as a formality, so it's not there for any future projects. And then given that, it clearly shows that peninsula little area is wetland. So I agree with Brian that I'd like to see it go back to wetland. And I think that could also help some of the potential. So that's also like the direction where the water is going to be going towards. So that will help hopefully any concerns about drainage. If you have more plants there, they will absorb some of that water if they're native plants. And then, yeah, I mean, I would love to see an impervious driveway. There really is a lot going on that. It's you have a huge site, over 37,000 square feet. But you're building up on a lot of it. So I'd like to see some pervious driveway. But my big thing, I guess, would be to echo Brian and have that area that is delineated 1 through 4 as wetland, return to wetland.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from conservation members? Martha?
I'm happy to have that area of lawn go back to native plants. I'm a little concerned that if the Silvas simply ignore it, that it may get taken over by invasive species. So it's important for them to understand that it's okay to remove invasive species if they start filling in there, and to encourage native species to grow there. Sometimes people think that they can't touch it, and therefore it gets all filled up with buckthorn and rose and garlic mustard and things like that. So, we want to encourage native plants and not invasive species to grow if we're letting that grow back up.
Yep, I second what Martha said, Brian and Andrew have said. Andrew, you had another comment. Go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up with Martha. I don't want it just to be ignored, like, okay, we'll just stop mowing it, we'll let it take its place. I'd like to see some plantings in there as part of the plan. So you're actually doing a little design and doing something, not doing nothing. That's it.
Okay. Andrew, do you have one last question or is it just the hand raise? Okay. At this point, I'm going to open it up to the public. I know several members of the public wanted to speak at the last meeting. And so I'm going to invite people who are here to make a comment on 34 Deborah Drive to use the raise hand function in reactions if you'd like to be recognized for a couple of minutes to speak. I don't see.
Seeing none so far. So it's the raise hand function and the reaction buttons at the bottom of your screen. You might have to move your cursor back and forth for it to appear.
Yep. In the meantime, while I'm looking, Chuck, do you have any final questions or comments?
Yeah, so I just noticed during the comments that the commission's intention was for that area to turn back into wetland. And I just want to let you know that it would not do that unless you brought it down to the right elevation, which seems to be about 3 inches of topsoil based on the elevation shots and the topography that you can see on the plan. So I wanted to ask Chris, I know that you said it's something you didn't want to get into, but you are digging the addition and you're in that area with some machinery anyways. If they just scraped off the topsoil, would that be, I guess, a lot of work in your opinion? I mean, I don't want to say make it seem like I'm kind of trying to understand where you're at with this and how much work you thought it was. It looks like it would be not a lot of work to scrape off the first couple of inches of topsoil.
No, it wouldn't be a lot of work. I didn't know how much we were going to be getting into it, what you guys were asking when I first started meeting with Pat on this. So if this is something you're recommending, we can take, while they're there digging it, we can pull back that area, scrape it back and do a little plantings that are native to that area if it needs be to encourage the wetlands to grow back.
Yeah, so that would be great. I'm not sure that the commission is asking for that. I think that you could cast some wetland seed mix, which would help out a lot. That would be pretty easy, okay. And that would probably fill right in with something that you'd be probably amazed with. It's they come right up, and it's not a bad look for that area. So I'll just turn it back to the commission. I just wanted to make that point that it's all about, you know, the top, where the top layer is, whether it's wetland or whether it's dry. And if you just left it alone, you're going to get a lot of dry type of plants growing up, which will make identifying in the future even more difficult.
Yeah, I apologize, Chuck. I guess I'm just a little naive. I thought it was like a whole removal and then bring something back in. Exactly what Chris just mentioned and you mentioned is perfectly fine with me. It's be a lot of work done anyway, so that'll satisfy some issues. That's perfectly fine with me. Sure,
that's all I had, Anika.
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment, Chuck, because I think from my perspective, this area should support the wetlands that exist around it. It needs to start transitioning there. We don't, I think turning this into a wetland reconstruction project might be adding a lot of additional complexity, because then we're talking about erosion and we're talking about reestablishing, and it's adding a lot more complexity than is maybe is needed. If you get some facultative, you get the right plants in there, and then you monitor for invasives. I hope, God willing, it'll come back and support the rest of the habitat. So, okay. So at this point, are any last questions before we wrap this up? Not seeing any hands raised.
Yeah, again, it's go to the reactions button at the end, bottom of the screen, and then just press the raise hand function. Yep, I see one. So it's Mark.
I'm asking to unmute. Oh, sorry. Mark, if you would please just say your address and your name.
Yep. So my name is Mark D. Giovanni. I am the son of the property owners at 30 Deborah Drive, and I represent my parents and their estate.
Okay.
And the only thing that I wanted to just bring to the attention, I guess, is the version of the plan that's presented here is different than the version I believe that was approved last week with the zoning board. So I guess we just wanted to confirm which plan is the submitted plan that's being agreed to by the town for this this renovation.
Sure, I can take that if you'd like. So when this plan came in, it was the first time I saw it, and Andrew McNichol works with the zoning board. So I sent it to Andrew, and I had a conversation with him this afternoon. And Andrew let me know that what the changes are on the plan brings it into compliance with the requirements of the zoning board. So these things have to happen. So that walkway and that doorway on the side of the proposed addition, Andrew told me that that has to go in. So he has a plan. It will be, it's not, he said he expected this stuff to happen. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, so I guess we just wanted to make sure that like the approved plan does address this drainage issue, and that the approval is contingent on kind of this plan being the one that is developed.
So the conservation, so for conservation, you're gonna have to talk to Andrew about for zoning. For conservation, this is the approved plan. The order of conditions, if there are any changes to this plan, they have to come back to the Conservation Commission and ask for permission to do that. You know, sometimes we find minor changes at the end of the project, but a minor change would be something like the plants aren't going in the exact spot, they're over 2 feet or something like that, but not adding to the addition, not increasing the size of the driveway, anything like that, they're in jeopardy of violating the order of conditions. So we're going to approve this plan, and unless there is a change, this is what's happening out in the field. For you, the problem is minor plan changes, the neighbors do not get notified. So you would have to keep up with what's on the agenda, and you can sign up for the agendas at the town hall the town website, and you can keep in touch with our agenda and the zoning agenda if there are any changes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Elaine. Oh, Eileen, sorry. And can you see that?
Yep, I see that. Eileen. I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay, I will do that.
I'm having trouble. I don't see her unmuting. I don't know what's happening.
I could hear her talking though.
Yeah, here, I'll just ask to unmute one more time and see if, there you go. Okay, you're all set.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. Eileen Laterio, 22 Deborah Drive. I hadn't seen on the plan a very large, healthy tree in the front of the property. And, you know, over the years, you know, that tree helped to draw up water in the area and maintain some moisture stabilization. So what would be the status? Is it on the plan? I don't see it. But what would be the status of that tree on the front of the property, you know, between 30 Deborah Drive and 34 Deborah Drive? you know, the roots and the tree itself, you know, had been very helpful in not allowing, you know, water flow toward the houses and into the backyards. And what would be the status of any trees on this project? Is there a need, you know, to remove trees? Is that something that would be allowed, or are they not being considered right now? So that is my question.
I could answer it, or Nika, if you want to
Go
answer
ahead,
that. Sure. So this plan doesn't show any trees being removed within the 100-foot buffer zone, which is this line right here. And so we're not aware of any trees within our jurisdiction that we could ask for replacement trees for coming out. So maybe that tree is outside of this line. And I know that Jack, you know, these are like tailored to the commission. And so if he knew that a tree was outside the 100-foot buffer zone, it probably wouldn't be located on the plan. But you know, Pat may know where that tree is and what's going to happen to it. I guess, Pat, I don't know. Do you anything with that?
Yep, so that tree is located essentially where that L equals 120 marking
Right
is on the
here.
map. Yep,
Yeah.
so it's right on the edge of my property line outside the 100-foot, which is why it's not on this map. I actually did speak with the tree warden as well, mostly to get ahead of, I'm meeting a lot of commissions for the first time, and I just wanted to get ahead of if he was going to have any issues with a driveway, you know, near a large tree in my front yard. And he indicated that the tree is on my property. I think he thought I was asking him to maybe take it down or something at the town's expense, but that's not what I was asking. But he was indicated it was on my property and not on the town's property. But our intent is to leave that tree unless something was to happen. That's not part of the plan, is to remove any trees or anything like that. In fact, it's planting instead of removing.
Do you know what type of tree it is?
I don't. One of my
Okay.
coworkers told me it's got like dark leaves, like almost like reddish black leaves on it. I was told it's like a nice tree or something, but I'm not sure exactly what kind. It's not one of the traditional oak or pine or anything like that.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
I just wanted to check. We had some commissioners asking about whether the driveway could be pervious pavement rather than impervious pavement. And I don't know that we have an answer to that question. We have an answer to the grassy area in the back, but not the driveway.
So my comment to that, I guess, would be, I don't have a lot of experience with anything other than a traditional asphalt driveway. So I'd be a little bit, I guess, speaking out of turn. I don't know if Chris kind of wants to jump in a little bit. The intent was to have a regular driveway for all the reasons that I know to have a regular driveway, like snow removal and cars driving over it and things like that. So I guess I wouldn't offer to have it be something other than that. Although I can't say I'd be opposed to having a portion of it or the whole thing be in a different manner. I'm a little naive as to how that would look and what the maintenance and stuff like that is for it. So I wouldn't want to say, sure, let's go do it, like I'm saying with the back peninsula there, because I don't know what I'm talking about, and I don't want to put myself into a corner of something that I didn't want to do, I guess.
So impervious, these driveways that are pervious are not taken off the aquifer protection list as a calculation because the engineering department feels like they have to be maintained. They can't ensure that they're maintained correctly. So instead of going through that exercise, they just call these driveways that are pervious, they act as if they're impervious, because if you don't maintain them, that's exactly what they'll be. So it's not going to help anyone out in the Aquifer Protection District, it would provide some infiltration for sure. And you know, obviously there's a cost difference. So Pat, you need to know that.
Okay, so I guess my final answer at this point would be, I would, I don't really know what the right terminology is. I would want to keep it as an asphalt driveway. But I've kind of said it to the commission a few times now. I'm willing to be flexible. I think you guys have all seen that with everything else. This is a project that, you know, needs to be done for my parents. So I'll do what I have to do. I guess I'm comfortable with the driveway I've had for the first 36 years of my life and knowing how to maintain it and all those things. So I guess that's my standpoint officially for the meeting right now.
Does it typically flood in this yard or side yard now, Pat?
No, the only standing water we typically get is actually back where we'd be letting it grow in and putting those plantings and things like that. That's where it gets the wettest, which is actually the reason why I don't mind letting it go to where it is, because you know, it's typically the wettest back there. Would be the least used part of my yard anyways. So that's why it's not a big objection to me. It's not a big heavily used by my children or anything like that.
So yeah, so the elevation up around the driveway is like 97 right here. It's 94 here. And then where it's wet is 91. So it's at least 4 feet above. So there's 4 feet that can be, you know, there's a 4-foot buffer. I would be more concerned about infiltration if it was closer to the, you know, the water table, but it seems like there's at least 2 feet of separation, if not 3. And that detention area is down by 1 foot. So, but you know, I'm not trying to not have the commission ask questions, but that's my call on it. I think that where it's located, which is in the front of the yard, almost 7 feet at the front end, it's about 7 feet above the wetland. And it's, you know, almost 80 feet away, all that time that it would infiltrate as it goes from one end of the yard to the other may add to this. There's no sign of, you know, water pooling in this area in the past. So Brian, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I was one of the ones who was talking about changing over to Impervious. I wasn't aware that engineering didn't take that into account. I agree with the maintenance concern. So at this point, as far as that goes, I retract it. I'm fine leaving it asphalt. I don't see any real gain in the extra costs and extra maintenance. So I'm good with it not being pervious, hence being impervious.
And from my standpoint, between the drip trench that's already going to be installed at the downhill end of the property, plus the bioretention cell, that tells me that a lot of the runoff is given at least 2 opportunities to be infiltrated and channeled into an infiltration area, which is great for impervious runoff. It helps filter everything. So at this point, see if anybody has any final questions. And then I think we should wrap this up and make a motion on this one. So not seeing any hands raised. I think we've received all the information we need. I don't think there's, although, let me just discuss with the commission. No, we talked about a planting plan of spreading wetland seed mix out there. So I'm just wondering if anybody in the commission, if that's sufficient, or do you want to see, would you like to see a detailed, a more specified planting plan?
I'm fine with the wetland seed mix suggestion and not require them to come back with a planting plan at another meeting.
Okay.
Me too.
Me as well. I like if they could dig off the top layer of grass so that it'll, I mean, it sounds like it's acting like a wetland as it is. So wetland seed mix is fine with me.
Okay. In that case, on this particular, this is a notice of intent. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move to close the public hearing on 34 Deborah Drive.
I'll second that.
Okay. can we
Angie
have-
Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. And then I'll entertain a motion. Chuck, did you have a comment?
Sure. I think the motion should include the flags that you want to approve. And I was thinking of another, I mean, certainly approve and issue this order of, I'll close this out and issue. But I think that we could take another step, and because the stormwater analysis came in late, on final review of the stormwater analysis, if there wasn't any questions, then I could get back to Jack and ask him to modify the plan if needed. But given that review, and of course I'm talking about the engineering department and myself reviewing that, we could just send it out after that comes in, if it's okay with the commission.
I think that's entirely appropriate. I did look at the stormwater of the HydroCAD report, and I noticed that they picked what I would call decent design storms, at least for the 100-year. So it could use a review just to make sure, but at first glance, from my perspective, it looked adequate. But again,
I wish you had said that, because then I didn't realize I wouldn't have mentioned with Ryan, but I'm sure that
no, it was literally it was a very quick review. It wasn't.
Okay.
It was a once over. So I wouldn't trust that 100%. Should at least look at it a little bit longer. So close the public hearing. So I'll entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions pending review of the stormwater information we received and the wetland flags. Chuck?
I think it's 2 through 4 are being approved. The rest are not being approved. I don't have that. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm seeing yeses.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So is there a motion based on those?
I move to issue an order of conditions, only approving wetland flags 2 through 4 and subject to final review of stormwater analysis by Chuck and the engineering department.
Okay, is there a second?
That. I'll second it.
Is there any discussion? Okay, none. I'll entertain a vote.
So I'm still new to this. So that means we are approving that will be converted to a wetland seed mix within this. Will be part of the order of conditions, or do we need to add that to the motion?
It wouldn't hurt to add it. It was talked about that is a condition, that the first 3 inches of topsoil will be removed between in that peninsula area between 3A and 4A, and then wetland seed mix will be cast in that area, and it will be left alone and, you know, in perpetuity. So you can just add that in. I'm just checking my list of, so we have Ryan's review, we have 2 through 4 in the flags, we have removed the topsoil and wetland seed myths.
And just to clarify, when you say left alone, they are allowed to remove invasive species if they see them coming in.
Right, and monitor for invasive species. Actually didn't have that.
Thank you.
As discussed tonight.
Okay.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Okay.
All right. Well, so we're good. We have a motion.
Motion as amended.
Motion as amended. Andrew Dribbin in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Great. So that's approved, that, and I'll talk to engineering. I'll send that off to them tomorrow. We'll probably hear early next week, and I'll be able to send that out. There's a 10-day appeal period anyways. This would all happen during that process. And you should be on your way, which is typically 2 weeks. So 2 weeks from today.
Thank you very much for all your time and help.
Okay,
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yep, thank you.
Good luck.
Okay, Varney Circle has continued. That's number 6 on the agenda.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to continue 16 Varney Circle.
So
I'll
moved.
make a motion to continue 16 Burning Circle.
Seconded.
Okay.
Andrew Dribbin in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay. And Lot A, is Lot A continued?
Lot A has also continued. Their plans are not ready. They wanted to make those modifications with the suggestions that the commission came up with at the last meeting. And I sent, so LEC sent me information, I think it was today, but I think it was anyways, no, it was yesterday, but I sent that to the applicant and I sent that to the commission, and that was a review of how to read the regulations and how to read our own regulations as far as vernal pool and habitat goes. And the one thing that they brought up is that our regulations say vernal pool, but the regulations, and it doesn't say habitat, but our regulations mention habitat a lot. So we thought that it was standing in our regulations to protect the habitat. So that's what I heard.
Yeah.
But I did have the opportunity to call and talk to Tom. So
Okay.
that's continued.
Okay. So I will entertain a motion to continue Lot A Main Street to March 9.
I'll make a motion to continue Lot A Main Street to March 9th.
Seconded. And Andrew Dribbin in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Scanlon in favor. All right. March 9th is going to be busy. Okay, so 572 Summer Ave.
572 Summer Ave. So I believe I thought I saw someone from Norris Environmental, Maureen Harold. Okay, so we can start this. Maureen's here for this.
And I think Pam Gerard is the resident.
Okay.
And JC also.
Okay. In that case, I will, and this is the first hearing for 572 Summer Ave. Correct. So I am going to open the public hearing on notice of intent 4572 Summer Ave, filed by LLC James Gerard pursuant to the Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act. The applicant proposes to construct an in-ground swimming pool, pool deck, gazebo, shed, crushed stone driveway, retaining wall, remove a dead tree, install fencing, landscaping, landscape planting, grading, and associated utilities. Portions of the work are within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland. The application and plans can be viewed during regular business hours at the Town Hall Conservation Office, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, and on the Conservation Division page under the current project, Assessor's Map 8, Lot 137. And is there DP file number, Chuck, at this time?
So strangely enough, there's no DEP file number nor any mention of this application on the DEP website. Usually you'll see some notation that they've sent something in, but they're waiting for the check to clear or something like that. I don't see anything on the DEP. Maybe Maureen can update us on that information. They usually check prior to the meeting.
Okay. Maureen.
Anything, Maureen? Yeah.
Welcome. And what do you know about this file number?
No, Chuck's correct. There's no mention of it on the website, which is a little bit unusual. I'm not sure if it's because it's vacation week for a lot of people. So, but everything was sent to DEP as required. So I'm sure it'll be posted shortly.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want to, I'll put up the plan and you give us the rundown, Maureen?
Sure, please.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so as the chairwoman mentioned, the A series is the bordering vegetated wetland. We are proposing to install an in-ground swimming pool, pool deck, gazebo, shed, crushed stone driveway, retaining wall. We'd like to remove a dead tree, fence. We're going to provide plantings, landscape plantings, grading, and associated utilities. We do provide the 25-foot buffer zone. We're not proposing any work within that area. And we do meet the 35-foot no structure, as the commission likes to see. All of the circles that are shown on the plan in between the proposed patio and pool area, that is where we're proposing the plantings. We are proposing erosion controls right along the fence itself so that the area will be completely contained. And I can open it up to the commission with any questions or concerns.
Okay, I believe there was a site visit this week. Brian, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Actually, there were two separate site visits with two different groups of commissioners. So let me just speak to my visit, which was today. First is a question though. You're talking about a dead tree. Is that the apple tree inside the fence line and not this dead tree outside the fence line?
So it's 15-inch apple tree to be removed. So,
Okay, so the one that's
right.
So one that's back a bit, even though it's dead, you're not planning on removing it?
No.
Okay. Anyway, so we went there today. We worked our way around to the back of the property to the flags. We did have some confusion with the flags. The main area confusion was that there were two flags labeled 6A. There was one about where it's shown here on the plan, and there's one further into the wetlands, I don't know, 10, 15 feet, something like that, also labeled 6A. So I'm not sure whether it was tied, so it didn't blow there. I'm not sure I got there. So that was the first area of confusion. Additionally, in looking at the wetland indicative plants and what have you, we were just uncertain about where exactly that line should be. In fact, this seems like a perfect example of how the figuring out of the boundary is part magic as well as part science, because there did seem to be some interspersed more substantial mounds and some very wet areas with the indicative plants. So I guess from our perspective of the visit, and our in this case was Chuck and I, and Chuck obviously is pretty capable of speaking on his own, but we were just concerned about the flags, and I at least would like to see a third-party review of the flags. That's probably the main thing worth talking about. We did see some debris in there. We did see some yard waste off to the left, although not quite sure if that was this property or the property next to it. Another thing worth mentioning, it just occurred to me, which is there's some lights along the back fence, and they're actually pointing into the wetlands. And so we didn't quite know what the intent of those were, but we had some concern about lighting up the wetlands like that. So that's all I have on my list. Chuck, do you want to fill in any blank areas I missed out on?
Yeah, so we went there today, and you know, I saw that kind of ring of stone, and I thought that was curious because I think that type of work would have been something that the Conservation Commission needed to review. And I found myself wondering what this property looked like 5 years ago. But the immediate question in my head was, you know, it's hard to review a project when the wetland flags are not making any sense. And I think what threw me off completely is just having 2 6As, and there was no 9, 8, or 7 anywhere. And we even looked up in the air, which has happened a couple of times. So, and then also I think 4A and I think 4A and 3A, I couldn't make heads or tails of those 2 flags. So I just had a lot of flag issues. And I don't know how long, obviously we can look at the plan and find out how long ago you did flag it. Do you think someone messed around with them? And Maureen, I was just wondering, because what I did notice is the flags were tied so loosely on the branches. And that's not typical. Usually they're double knotted and they're tied tighter than that. So what's that, Maureen?
So Steve went out and had flagged this wetland. So in terms of the confusion with the 2 6As, I don't know. I can certainly investigate that. That's not a problem. And he usually ties the flags looser than I do. So
yeah, they were real loose. Like I could slip my finger in between them, and it just didn't. So looking at all that, the 2 6As, and can't find some of them, and they're super loose, like just barely kind of like wrapped around, and kind of, they weren't even pulled tight. It just made me think that maybe someone had moved them around. And anyways, that was my thought. So it became very confusing.
well, I'm more than happy to meet the commission out there. I know one commissioner mentioned a peer review. Maybe that's the direction the commission will go, but I'm more than happy to meet the commission out there as an alternative.
Yeah. Do you have an answer for the 2 6As? I mean, that doesn't seem. Well,
No,
Again,
honest-
there's a couple missing and then the two. So, typically that would make me think that someone messed around with the flags.
I know
So-
sometimes if I'm having a long day, I'll duplicate numbers, even if it's just 6As or something. Maybe it's that, but honestly, I can't answer that question. I can certainly go out and investigate it and tighten up the flags and walk it with the commission. And if you want to look at the soils, I'm more than happy to do that.
So September 30th, 2021. So September, yeah, not so long ago, but still there's a few missing. Okay, that's all I had to say.
Okay, Martha has her hand raised. Go ahead, Martha.
When Andrew and I went out on Sunday afternoon, we were able to find 7A. And to the left of 7A, there was a piece of a blue ribbon, but there was no number for 8A. But we could see a ribbon tied to a tree where we believe 8A is marked on this map. But we also could not find 9A. And
Right.
were confused by the fact that there was a 6A considerably further into the wetland than the 6A that's located on this line. I don't think that second 6A really impacts the project because they're not planning to do any work closer to the wetland line than the existing 6A that they've drawn on the map. Let me think. We also noticed that if you go back to where there was some standing water, beyond the wetland line, there's some what looks to be very old rusted metal trash quite a ways in the standing water in the back. I think it would be very hard to get that out of that wet area, but it clearly has been there a long time. And we were able to find 4A and 5A and 6A as well as the ones we already mentioned.
Did you see a double 6A or not?
Yeah, saw 2 6As.
Okay.
One here and one
Yeah.
up at the top of the plan.
Yeah, like
somewhere.
real further. And we found that
pretty much the same left to right as the current 6A, just closer to that 82 line.
All right. So we didn't find 7, but the 8A that you spoke about that was tied to the tree without the aluminum tag on it, we call that out as being older because the plastic of the flag was harder and brittle and seemed to have aged. And the new fresh flags are very supple. And so anyways, to me, that was an older flag or an older, maybe not even a wetland flag. But if we go back out there, we can specifically look at that, knowing the comments now, and see what we think of that flag.
When I was there, JC, one of the owners, told us that they did in fact have the wetland flag on 2 separate occasions. So that might explain why that is an older looking flag.
Okay, and JC just had their hand raised, but then they lowered it.
There it goes. Yeah.
So I'm just going to ask JC to unmute.
Hello. I was just going to add that we have had the property flagged for wetlands twice. It was once several years ago. And we did it again this fall. So
just to be clear, James.
That blue ribbon that you said was kind of crispy, like it was old, was probably one of the old ones in the same line.
Just introduce yourself and where you live.
JC Gerard, 572 Summer Ave, Reading.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
That map, I mean, how does that compare to this one? I'm just curious if it's changed much. I guess there's a couple questions in there. So one, the fence was built in the past 5 years. Did that go before the Conservation Commission? And is that what you had the land surveyed for previously?
We had the land surveyed previously for this project. And then with COVID and everything, we kind of stopped moving forward. We had the property surveyed, and then we had the soil testing done and the blue flags done. And we also had a plan drawn up, a landscape plan, but because he was from not around here and had never done any work in Reading, he was kind of scared away. So everything came to a stop. Then COVID, and then we kind of just after sitting around the house and wish we could go somewhere last year, we kind of revisited it and open it up again.
Got it.
Mr. Gerard, did you bring in soil and backfill your yard?
We brought loam in probably 27 years ago when we built an addition.
Is that where all that gravel ring came from?
That's been, some of that's been there, but mostly it's the loam that came in, which is from the stone towards the house to make the lawn.
Just so you're aware, Mr. Gerard, the filling near a wetland within the jurisdictional area is something that needs to come before us for permission.
No, you're talking about the loam that we put in when we put the addition on 27 years ago. We had permission to do landscape the backyard.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about ground disturbance within 100 feet of the wetland line, which is, of course, why you're here tonight with this project, because work that you're proposing to do involves excavating, digging, regrading, and constructing within 100 feet of a wetland. I just wanted to be clear about, you know, what's typically allowed and what is typically prohibited. I just wasn't sure if you, sometimes I don't, you know, I'm not sure if you've come before conservation while I've been around, but, you know, just want to make sure that you're as, you know, as a steward of this land in your backyard, that, you know, you understand the process and what's allowable and what is not. So that wasn't a quiz, I was just asking. Andrew, go ahead.
Again, I'm new to this stuff, so I mean, I'll just ask JC, have you been in front of the Conservation Commission before for any projects you've done in the backyard?
When we put the addition on 27 years ago, yes.
But not since then?
No.
Okay. Okay. When was the fence, when did you add the fence to the backyard?
6, 7 years ago.
Okay. So my understanding is that should have probably have gone before the Conservation Commission, but I could be wrong.
That was less than 6 years ago. It was when I got hurt.
And
It's for the dogs. I got dogs that.
yes, that's right. And okay, but you didn't go before the Conservation Commission before adding the fence?
No.
Okay.
Brian, go ahead. I'm sorry, Andrew, were you finished? Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I'm done.
Okay, Brian?
Okay. So JC, I didn't realize you were on when I was talking. Can you explain a bit about what you do with the lights shining into the?
It's for the coyotes.
So
we have a lot of coyotes out back.
So to scare them off, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have a follow-up. Nick, I'm all set.
Okay. Well, I think, so are there any other questions from conservation members at this point? No? Okay. please raise your hand while I'm talking if something comes up. So at this point, I think the way I understand it, like the first order of business for this particular notice of intent is to make sure we understand that wetland line. And Martha, go ahead.
Sure. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here. I'm a little concerned about the location of the mulch sock line and how it's going to get laid, because it's being drawn right along the fence. And when we were out there, JC told us that he's concerned about having the mulch sock inside the fence in case it makes it easier for the dogs to get over the fence. And I know that the crushed stone pathway there is where the dogs like to run back and forth near the fence. And I'm wondering whether it might make more sense to put the erosion control inside that crushed stone pathway, because there doesn't seem to be any work going to be done beyond it. And as I say, maybe that's something to come up with on a different meeting if we're going to be revisiting the wetland line before then. That's all.
Okay. Thank you for your comment.
Alternatively, we could put it on the outside of the fence as well. Then that way the dogs won't get it if that's appropriate. And I just was hoping to maybe get some feedback from the commission. I understand that the wetland line is a concern and it's something that we can address, but is there any other concerns or comments on the project as a whole? If I could have that feedback tonight, that would be great.
I'll go on that one as well. I'm a little concerned about the retaining wall and the crushed stone driveway. It looks like that will require a lot of fill to take that steep hill and spread it out into something much flatter. So when we're worrying about adding a lot of fill inside the 100-foot line, it seems like perhaps that could be more of a sloped driveway and not a steep retaining wall edged driveway. And also just concerning about what that's going to do to the stormwater runoff.
So if I may address that. So the dashed line that's located north of the ramp, that's the 100-foot buffer zone.
Mm-hmm.
So approximately that's between the TW stands for top of wall. So the top of the wall is 91, approximately in that location. And then the grading below is 88. So, you know, you're talking about 3 feet there, and then the wall as it heads towards the north, towards the wetland, it just gradually grades out. And in terms of stormwater, we're proposing a crushed stone driveway, so that's completely pervious. So any type of stormwater, rain or anything like that will infiltrate through the crushed stone drive.
Okay, but if you look at the grading, it says 84 near the fence, and then it goes up 4 feet before you ever get to your 3-foot wall. So, you know, you're bringing the grade of that area of the yard up 84 to 92, 8 feet above its existing level. So, you know, I'm a little concerned about that much fill being brought in order to raise the driveway up to make it slope only from 93 down to 90 into that backyard area. So you're getting a steep slope outside a retaining wall.
Right. So, I mean, obviously that'll be stabilized, you know, if the commission allows it, that it's not going to be hardscaped, and it's not going to be exposed dirt or anything of that nature. We're going to be stabilizing that area with lawn.
So are any plantings proposed here?
Yes, so do you see the green circles?
No, let me be clear. I'm talking about enhancing the bordering vegetated wetland 35-foot setback zone. I'm talking about enhancing the natural vegetated area next to the wetland, enhancing the buffer.
So, no, we're not proposing plantings within that area. It's certainly something I can discuss with my client,
And
providing that.
And, you know, if this fence was put in without, if this fence was put in and the area behind the fence, I don't know if people on the site visit, if you could answer this, please. Did it seem like what was there for existing lawn was backfilled, or like is the grade inside the fence higher than the grade outside the fence? It is.
Yep.
So
Yeah, you can see
was,
that on the contour lines on the plan, that it goes from 84 to 86 to 88. So when you're standing at the fence, you're looking up quite a slope into the backyard.
So we really need to see like reestablishment of the 35-foot bordering vegetated area.
Okay, so as you can see on the plan, some of the crushed stone is encroaching within the 35-foot. So, you know, just to make the commission aware, obviously, if we can keep the stone there, we would like to.
If it was a violation to put it in the first place, Maureen, then it should probably get taken out.
Okay, so I'm not sure when the crushed stone was installed. I can certainly find that out, and I can speak to my client regarding that.
Okay, so the proposed additional impervious areas, is there any stormwater management enhancement proposed for all the impervious area that's proposed?
So no, we are not proposing any stormwater management. It's something that we can look at in terms of infiltration. I was under the impression that the commission requires that more so for additions in that nature, but does the commission look for this for patio areas as well, infiltration?
The pool is a permanent impervious area.
Right.
The gazebo, the shed, there's a lot of structure going on here. That is, I mean, is the deck impervious? Or is it solid concrete?
The deck is there.
So the deck is existing?
Yes, ma'am.
There's two different decks. There's one attached to the house and there's one between the pool and the gazebo. Which one is existing?
Before the pool and the gazebo.
Between the pool and the gazebo, there's a word that says deck.
Oh, that would be the apron around the pool. That's not there now. No.
Right. So as of right now on the plans, that's proposed to be impervious.
Right. I think a couple things need to happen. We need to verify the wetland line. I think we need to know the history of the filling and the fencing in the backyard.
There hasn't been any filling.
I think we need to look a little bit at that and just verify that. Maybe we could use some aerial photos. Maybe we could do just some observations. Because if there has been a violation, we should do something. Something should be done about that. The rest of the work, from my perspective, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the Conservation Commission, is for all of the increased impervious that's happening there, we should try to get as much of that infiltrated as possible. And I'd like to see as much natural vegetation restored within that 35-foot zone as possible. And ideally getting structures, including fencing and fill, out of the 35-foot. And that's my sense. I don't know about the rest of the Conservation Commission, so I'll ask them.
Can I ask you one question?
Hold on a second. Let me just get the Conservation Commission. Andrew or Martha? No? Okay. Go ahead, Maureen.
The question is for this type of project, is the commission open to pervious pavers, to use that as a type of infiltration?
We are. I'm going to say for myself, I mean, I don't speak for all of conservation until there's a vote. You know, if people agree with what I'm saying, if they're maintained and maintained successfully, I think there's an opportunity there for that case. Chuck?
So I just wanted to ask JC if you could, the stone that's in that semicircle around the outer ring, I just wanted to know its origin, its purpose, how deep it is, because it's almost like a drip trench, in my opinion. So I wanted to know a little bit about it.
Well, I had a couple, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I had a couple thoughts on why I put it in. My dogs like to run. And what was happening is it was burning out a path that was creating mud. And we put the stone in there so that it's not having mud that will wash away. It was, the reason why I did it was to stop erosion.
How did you put it in? What did you dig, like a foot down or 6 inches down?
6 inches, 8 inches.
Okay. Okay. Let's see.
I'm also disabled, and someday if I have what we have, I have a small golf cart that I can drive around the back with that. I mean, it was more or less for the dogs and to stop any runoff into the back area and creating mud.
So I had some concerns about that, the steepness along the retaining wall, but that was addressed. And another concern I had was more for the future, maybe not for your use, but if we approve this driveway, which there's a lot of driveway there. I just,
this kind of grew into a driveway. This really, when I talked to the people trying to just draw this drawing, it was a proposed pad of turf, like lawn. There's a slight hill that goes down there now, and all I wanted to do was continue it across a little bit level and then slope it down. And when people told me, what you do is you have to apply and put everything that you possibly need down the road. So we put in a wall along there. I mean, ideally, I'd rather not do a wall. I'd rather have a gentle slope, and just where it says proposed crushed stone drive, this slope would go down and then kind of, it's just a level area of lawn, and maybe in the middle have a rectangle pad flush with the grass of crushed stone, because I have a landscape trailer that I'd like to park there, push it, bring it down so it's out of my driveway, but it's not rusting on grass. It's really not a driveway to say, it's just.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying. It just got,
there's a lot on area. It's grown into a bigger than it was, like we talked about the deck around the pool. Down the road, I might like to look into that, the synthetic turf instead of using pavers or cement, which is water can go through it. We kind of haven't got that far of choosing, but If things are better to have block so it drains, I'm open for that. You know, and the shed, I had a shed there, it rotted, and I'm looking more or less just to replace my shed. I'm still paying taxes on a shed that's not there.
Yeah. So I appreciate that, the background, and I understand how this area can turn into something that just needs to look proportionate on the plans. But my concern about the driveway was you have a crushed stone driveway, but it becomes a paved driveway in the future that doesn't have any infiltration at the end of it. So that was my concern, where, you know, we're approving this as a driveway and it turns into something else. I do like your plan better, where you just created enough room to get your trailer in the back and you created a pad and the rest became lawn. That I can see. And then you remove the retaining wall and just slope that down. That seems better. There's a lot of action going in the back, and it's going to, you know, take a lot of discussion to review that. So the other thing that I wanted to find out is if those lights are on all the time, or is it motion control?
Motion control.
Okay. Yeah, because I was concerned if you just had lights and there was a lot just glaring in the back, that it would, you know, it would just give the wrong signals to the animals, and they operate on that, the sense in the moon and all that. And when they see light, there different things happen. And if you've kind of altered that somehow, but motion control, that would be better than just on all the time.
Well, I can remove any lights out there that you don't care for. It's not a problem. I just have 2 dogs who are worth a couple grand a piece. One of them is a champion, and I don't want them getting eaten by the coyotes.
Yeah. Do the coyotes, so yeah, I saw some tracks back there, and I saw a path that kind of headed into the woods, but it didn't, not the woods, but the wetland area. That wasn't your path. Is that the coyote trail?
I know what path you're talking about.
Yeah.
I have never been over the water brook onto my back part of my property.
Bet you wouldn't want to. I bet you this time of year.
And that path there, I've never actually ventured down that, but I did notice we get deer, we get coyotes. And I think that was created by them. It looks like all the brush is worn on the sides. It's an interesting little path, but that is not me.
Okay. I'm trying to get through my questions quickly. And then between the proposed wetland line and the fence, I looked at,
hear that.
between the wetland line and the fence that's existing. When I was out there, I saw some trees that were cut down, but my question was, I went back to the office and I did look at some aerial photos. It looks like it was more vegetated in the past. And one of my asks would be that area, which is our 25-foot zone of natural vegetation. So just the title itself tells you how the commission feels about that first 25 foot. And that would be from, you know, between the flags, 6A, 5A, to the fence, is back to a vegetated situation, you know, where you had some plants and some shrubs back there. And I understand that you're worried about coyotes, but I'm sure you could come up with something instead of just clearing it out. You know,
whatever is on
I
the
guess
outside.
like outside the fence, like a sight line, like it's open so you can see what's happening. I'm sure that's kind of part of the thought. See what's happening between the fence and where you can't do any work, which would be where the wetland is because it's too wet. But I would like to see that area return to a natural, kind of more of a natural situation. And then just to get back to that run, I think if it's like, you know, a foot or less with all the work that's going on in there, you're likely to disturb that anyways. You might as well bring that into the 35 foot or try to get a variance for it where it's at. But if you turn that into kind of like a crushed stone run, but got it about 2 foot deep with stone in it, there's your infiltration, you know, that was asked about. So seems like you have that idea already. That's, yeah, spoke about the driveway, the retaining wall, the lights, the vegetated area in the ZNV. And I guess you asked what our thoughts were on the plan. There's a lot of this plan that's towards the outer edge of the 100-foot buffer zone. I think this plan needs a 50-foot line, or to tell us how far away like the pool apron is to the wetland line. So, you know, we would know if that's 50 feet or 65 feet or something like that, because the further away with a, you know, PVW, the more palatable it is. And then the trees that are in back of there, I saw that those were cut down and chopped up. It probably would be best if you left those to fall on their own and decompose on the ground. But if there was a reason you wanted to cut them down, I would be willing to listen to that, but I don't think they would fall on anyone from where they are.
Sorry, which tree you talk about? The dead one?
Well, there's dead ones on the ground that's been cut into like chunks, firewood size pieces. And then there's maybe one or two standing that are dead. You even marked one on the plan.
Yeah, there's one, there's an ash tree. It looks like it's dead, but I think it's still holding on. And then there's that old elm that looks like a giant slingshot. My opinion on that is if it decides to fall, it's going to fall the other way. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
The stuff that was on the ground was an old elm, and then one limb that was on a real lousy maple that was totally engulfed in bittersweet vines, and it was dead. So we just cut it off. And the person that cut it off for me, he just cut it up on the ground. I asked him to cut it up so if we wanted to move it out in big pieces, but he cut it in fire length pieces, and it's been there for a couple of years.
Okay, that's all I have, Anika.
Where the fence is, I have no reason to go anywhere outside the fence anymore. There's nothing out there that I need to do. You know, it's like the thing about the sight line. It's everything that's out there is, you know, there's two beautiful flowering trees that have the berries on them. It's, you know, it's fine the way it is.
Yeah. Would you be opposed to adding some vegetation out in that area?
I mean, I really don't want to go crazy spending money, but you know, there is a lot of red twig dogwood out there, and a few more probably would be nice if that's on the list of species.
Yeah, I think we would
anything
end up
on the
looking
inside
for
of the
something.
fence. I'd like to try to keep as much grass area on that hill as possible. And
Well, I think you're fortunate inside the fence, but outside the fence, I think needs to be considered inside this application because of the way it is and because of what it looks like from the aerial photos. So if you could pick some species out or work with Maureen to come up with some plants that would be planted in that area in an appropriate amount, that would go a long way. Those are my comments.
okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I can do that. That's not a problem. Before I request to continue tonight, if the commission has provided all the comments, I just wanted to ask if this is going to go out to review, if the commission wants us to go out to peer review, I'd rather get that voted on now. If you think you want to go back, if you want to do another site visit, I can do that as well.
So I wanted to know if that Brian asked, or no, Andrew asked for the plan from the previous review. If it was a different company, that would be worth looking at prior to deciding on a review or not. That's my thought. I mean, there's already been 2 delineations out here. We might as well look at the other one. So JC, is that plan with the wetland flags on it that you originally did 5 years ago available?
I'm not sure if there was an actual plan done.
JC, did you hear my question?
I'm sorry.
Yes, the plan that was done 5 years ago where for the prior to COVID.
What was done 5 years ago is I had Steve Melishuk survey my property. And then somebody came in and marked with the flags, and he put together a survey, like a plot survey, and he roughed in some of the information. But it was the type of thing when we got closer to bringing it forward, it was going to be put on a map. So the process was started and then it stopped. And I believe Norris was called on the flagging the first time years ago. Then they also came out with the probes and they dug into the soil.
Okay.
To find
Right.
in the line.
Well, it seems like it was Norris anyways.
Yeah, we had done it, but in terms of the discrepancy with the 6A, I don't know, because Steve had flagged it this time, so. But again, I'm more than happy to meet the commission out there. I can look at soils.
I think that back flag was a mistake for some reason, and I have not touched any flags.
Yeah, that back flag is like 15 feet back from
It's
the front 6A.
Yeah,
So it's odd.
But after he put it up, I actually went out there that day and I couldn't figure out why it was there.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Just real quick, I think my assumption was maybe it was the FEMA line, but I don't know what it was for.
Okay, it sounded to me like that from the results of the site visit that from Brian and from Chuck and from Martha, that the wetland flag line is really challenging to determine, even knowing where even if you can find the flags, it's hard to verify. So that's one of the things I've heard tonight that makes me think a third-party review of the wetland flag line is appropriate. So I'll open it up to the conservation members and see if you agree, you know, this wetland flag line needs a solid review, especially if there isn't, if this is the, you know, if this is the one wetland delineation data set that we have to look at, and it's still throwing us a little bit. Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, so I don't know if we need a third party review personally. I think looking from the aerial photos, that when the fence was added, there was definitely vegetation taken down and expanding, you know, the zone. So I just would want to, rather than having them spend money on another wetland delineation, like we could figure out something to do to get back to that area somehow back there. I'm not sure what that means, but I think we should try to consider rethinking what's going on back there. Because we could redo it, but I think things have been changed. I don't think it's going to change the plan overall if we have them redo the flags. But I think there are things we could do for trying to get that fence in there. But again, I'm not sure what that really means. But no, I'm not really in favor of another third-party wetland delineation. Just maybe reviewing what's out there with Norris.
It sounds like you're not entirely convinced it would significantly change the review.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
Like,
okay.
I think if you did it 5 years ago before the fence, it would have been different, but doesn't matter.
Okay. Martha or Brian or Carl, do you have any opinions about this? Go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So the reason that I was thinking for a third-party review was to try and have a more substantiated place to start thinking from. But I agree there are other questions about the fence itself, questions about the crushed stone arc. But it seemed to me that the place to start was the beginning, which to have a wetland flag line that was more reliable, to use probably an overstated word. And so I can see Andrew's point. You know, if we were looking a different way and sit there and say that the fence and probably the stone arc probably should have gone before commission back whenever they were put in. And so if we were to say that we would not insist on them being taken out, just as a hypothetical, if we were going to go along with that, then in return, what could we ask for that would then help make up for it? As Chuck was pointing out, in that almost a no man's land between the fence and the current look at the wetland lines, there's a lot of mushy ground that could use planting. A lot of it is open and just muddy. So if in fact the homeowner would agree to some significant planting out there, including some trees that could replace the ones that were cut down, I'd be willing to consider that. I wanted to start from a firmer starting position, which is why I was asking for a third-party review. But if we can get,
Oh my God.
if we can get something more for the wetlands, I'm open to alternatives. That's it.
Okay. So at this point, I'll open it up to questions from, oh, Andrew, you had your hand up or no? Okay. Open it up to questions from the public. If you're a member of the public who wants to comment or has a question, please raise your hand in the reactions. Okay, not seeing any. I think we're at a point where we've discussed a lot of things, and I think we're ready to continue this to the next meeting.
Is it possible to get a decision on third-party review, since time may be of the essence and it might matter to the project moving forward or not? I often think that a notice of intent, you can't make an accommodation to not verify the wetland flags. So we should either go out there and try to move them, which I don't think anyone said that they felt like they wanted to do or could do, or just get a review on the flags that matter. So I don't know if it would change the project, but I also don't, I know that that's a starting point. And I think we just did one tonight where we only approved 3 flags, and that shouldn't continue.
Right. Well, I think these flags, I agree. I think these flags have to be known with some certainty if we're going to approve this project, because that's the basis for our decisions. Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm still figuring things out. I understand that we need a strong wetland delineation for us to move forward. So it is hard to, without having a better, I don't think the wetland delineation we have right now is very good. So I suppose that does mean we should ask for a third. I guess I would be in favor of that. I just think money would be better spent somewhere else, but I understand that has to be our starting point.
Right. I think that we could do a couple of things. We could make it easy on ourselves. I'd just be up to the applicant. We're pretty close to the spring, and you could wait until things start to bud out, and it would be easier for everyone to identify the wetland line that way. That's one option. Third-party review is another option. And then to meet Norris Environmental out there and try to talk about the line. Obviously, that third option would be a lot easier when the plants are out there. And I've gone in the wintertime and done this, and then come back in the spring and been surprised where some of the ferns and whatnot have grown in. So, and you know, I have to say that the way these flags are set up and presented when the commission was going out there just before the meeting did make it more tough or more difficult than it usually is with Norris. So I think the coyotes grabbed those first few flags and took them into the woods or something. So yeah, if we could get a decision on one of those, and one of those the applicant would need to weigh in on.
So we as a Conservation Commission, we need to decide whether we want a full line review or a limited number of flags line review, like the 3 or 4 closest, just to kind of establish the foundation of a wetland line.
I don't think that's good. You know, Maureen would, I don't know if that would make any sense.
I think if you're out there, honestly, there aren't a lot of flags anyway.
Yeah.
So
I think the commission needs to review flags 4A through 9A. Those are the flags that are on the lot. I think that's what we need to review.
Yeah, there's only 2 additional. That makes sense. I mean, those are the ones that are on the lot.
2A and 3A are off-site. It doesn't so much matter. Let's review the flags that are on the lot. Again, I'm more than happy to meet you out there. And, you know, if a review is appropriate, then we can do the review. So it's the pleasure of the commission.
Maureen, what would happen with flag? Like 4A seems to be on site, but 3A, that one's off site. Would you assume that was correct, or would you just eliminate it altogether?
We can look at 3A. It's close to 4A, so it's kind of splitting here. So I guess.
All right, so fine. 2A seems to be well off site.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So at this point, especially because we just opened it, you know, this Conservation Commission does a lot of additional work to go out and review these lines. It would be, you know, it's quite an additional task for us to do. It's an ask of our time and our own, you know, our own resources to do that. So that said, I think it does make sense to meet Maureen and try to work out the line one more time. And if it really is at a time, especially when the vegetation is a lot more indicative of where the line is, and that really maximizes the opportunity for all people who go out there to see where the line is and to know it with a little bit greater certainty than right now. So I think a good approach would be to pause until we can get vegetation at least starting to bud out. And I know skunk cabbage comes out early. So if the applicant's willing to.
Well, let's get it right. Let's not, if we're going to wait, let's not just wait for skunk. Skunk cabbage actually is out there already. So are you thinking end of April?
I'd ask Carl.
Carl.
Yes.
When would you
I
think we
mean-
would see leaves?
And end of April is probably really is the earliest, I would think. But it also depends if we've kind of have a, a warmer. I think January and February have been kind of cold. I mean, some warm ups, but and then for the timing for the project, I mean, I think that could be doable, right? The third week in April or something like that. We don't,
Yeah, so, we won't be able to do it twice. If we pick April and
right.
there's no change, then, so it looks like May 11th would be the first meeting in May. And we could meet out there prior to that meeting. Obviously the applicant would have to allow us to continue to that point, but that seems we would be assured of having leaves and other things to identify out in that area. Carl, what do you think of that week?
Could I make a suggestion? Would it be possible to continue this for a month? And in the meantime, I can talk to JC, because obviously if we continue this to May, that's just to get the wetland line looked at. And we still have to go through the permitting process. So now we're talking, if the commission allows a permit and issues ones, we're looking at June or July by the time we receive the permit, revise the plans, go through the process, go through the appeal period. If I can continue for a month and discuss a possible peer review, we might be able to get the wetland line resolved beforehand. And that would save us at least a month, 6 weeks.
So you're for that of paying for a peer review to come out there to speed this project up.
I'd like to have the conversation with JC, because I don't know if his intent was to start this summer. And if this gets bumped to May, then he may not have the permits until the fall. I don't know when he's planning on starting the work. JC, are you planning on starting the work this summer? I might have lost him.
Hello?
There we are.
Hello?
You're open.
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Your question was I planning on starting this project this summer?
Yes.
I'd like to. I'd like to at least put my shed up. I'm kind of looking at this as not a long range plan, but a medium range plan where it's done in pieces. And it would be the summer I was going to get the shed up and then maybe soften that hill on the side of the driveway with the stone and then go from there. I haven't talked to a pool company, so I'm not in a queue, but they're looking at like a year out for a pool to be dug right now.
I can attest to that.
So the longer I wait, the longer it gets pushed out. And I basically have thought that, we wouldn't be doing a pool until probably either a year from now or a year from this fall coming up. But the shed and maybe a patio just at the bottom of the decks there would be a start. I don't know. First would be the shed.
All right, so
So
I
that
think
aligns with, right, so May.
I don't think it
sounds-
is. Yeah, it doesn't sound like a shed that can happen anytime. There's no hold up on a shed.
I'm sorry.
Okay, so then I guess we can continue till May. And what I'll do is I can reach out to Chuck. I mean, I understand it's weather permitting, maybe mid-April to try and set something up for the end of April.
Yeah, or
First
the
of
May,
yeah. Or beginning of whatever the commission's comfortable
I
with.
think that first week of May looks good. The week that maybe to reach out the end of April, and we'll set something out for the first week of May.
I mean, yeah, Chuck, I think, things like magnolias and some deciduous shrubs should be budding and leafing starting by then, by end of April. And then for the, canopy trees, the oaks, the maples and things will be right after that. So that May 9th should be a sure bet, if that's the idea.
Mhm.
And it sounds like, JC, I think you're thinking correctly with timing. I would say a pool company is at least 9 months to a year right now, regardless. So
It's not even a thought in my head about swimming in anything this year.
That's wonderful of you. You're a good client.
Ask about the shed. Can you pull a permit?
You said something about the shed that it's not has. Can you pull a permit on the shed now, or is that a wait?
So let me pull up the plan again, just so we can just concentrate on the shed area.
It's within the 100-foot zone, but other than that.
It's almost outside of it.
JC, is it just dropped on concrete blocks?
The shed will be on concrete blocks on the crushed stone.
And is there any leveling that needs to happen ahead of time? Like any significant grading that's going to be needed?
Not really. It's pretty much all set for it. I had a shed there before.
Yeah, it says there's existing concrete pad. You're just gonna put it right back in the same spot?
I'm gonna put it further away from the wetlands, closer to the house. I'm gonna utilize that concrete pad as when you open the back door of the shed, that's what it would pour onto, so I don't have to redo anything there.
So you're going to put it in that area designated on the plan?
That's correct.
I mean, from my vantage point, as long as the work to get the shed there doesn't cause significant erosion. I mean, you're in the outer, you're between maybe 75 and 100 feet from the wetland.
I'm not sure if you're familiar with a company called Reed's Ferry Shed, but that's who we're using. And they pre-assemble most of it, and then they carry it into your backyard. From where it is right there, it's a straight shot out a gate right there to the road. Should be very little impact.
On the left side of your house?
That's correct.
Okay, let's see how the rest of the commission, what the rest of the commission thinks about Martha, about approving just the shed.
I don't have any problem with the shed. And I also want to point out that the proposed patio is outside the 100-foot zone. So is that part actually outside our jurisdiction as well?
Part of it is. Part of it goes toward the shed.
Yeah. But the work right next to the deck and the sunroom is outside our jurisdiction.
It's outside of the 100-foot, correct. But also just to keep in mind, if work outside of the 100-foot zone has the potential to erode into the wetland, it's still under our jurisdiction and our say. So go ahead, Andrew.
And it's not just erosion, it's impact impact the resource area.
I have no problem with the shed. I mean, my biggest concern on this plan as a whole, when you guys rethink it, well, when it's super ambitious, it's cost a lot of money. So, I mean, and then from my point of view, that proposed crushed stone drive that we've talked about, that's just way bigger than it seems like it should be. And I like the way you were talking about it, JC, better. So when you're rethinking the drawing of this, that would be nice to draw it the way you've been talking about it. And then again, as you're rethinking this, so again, shed's fine, rethink the driveway, and then do something at that backyard there, plantings, just to give back to the wetland, since that fence was done kind of without asking. So
you're-
some sort of gesture.
So you're saying to think about plants outside the fence in that area where you're going with the cursor?
I
Yeah,
think
I
in here,
mean, I would like to see some inside too, but I know the dogs are gonna just stomp on them. So if there's a way of doing something inside the fence as well, it would be nice.
Okay.
But I understand that the dogs are not gonna like that. So yeah, but yes to behind the fence.
Okay.
Between the fence and where the wetland delineation is. And it just means drawing, or I mean, drawing something back there to, yeah, so adding some plantings and like that, and potentially inside. But again, it's late and I just know that I'd like to see something. So acknowledging that this fence is here and it's encroached on the wetlands a bit, and this is what I'd like to offer back. So that's something to think about when you're redesigning the plan.
Sounds good, sir.
Okay, Chuck, should we have sort of just a motion and a vote just on the shed? I'm trying to think of how to handle that one procedurally inside this notice of intent.
Do you want an amendment to accept the shed?
Do you have any suggestions?
Yes, an amendment to accept the shed.
An amendment to accept the shed?
And then plans. on
Yeah, we're coming up with that.
Okay.
yeah.
We're coming up with that. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
So I'm not sure what's, I'm not, I'm not sure what's going to happen to the rest of the project. I mean, I think the shed is approvable on its own under a different permit, you know, inside of this permit. It would be hard to say that any part of this should be approved without, you know, those mitigation measures.
Right.
They're certainly welcome to submit the shed under a different permit and then redo this plan and come back to the commission with the changes that we suggested tonight. That's kind of how I would do it.
Okay, because under a notice of intent, you can't partially approve a piece of a notice of intent.
Yeah, so like in the future, JC, and it would just, on the shed, it would say,
Okay.
you know, existing, you know, existing shed. But we have a permit, it's called a minor project permit, it's an online permit. You could request, and you could use this plan, you could say, you know, I want to put a shed exactly right there and submit it.
Okay.
Was that enough information? I should have said it's, so if you go to the Conservation Division page and you click on online permits, you'll find our permits, our conservation permits, and one of them is for a minor project permit. It'll walk you through the application and ask you for some uploads. And then when you submit all that stuff, it allows you to actually send it to the conservation office where we'll review it and ask questions. I think that's how we could handle the shed.
And does a minor permit not have to come in front of a meeting? So it can be permitted in between our meetings?
Yeah, so usually sheds outside the 50-foot zone, the last writing of the regulations allowed certain activity, pools, above ground pools, and sheds. Some other things too. There's a list, but it's online.
Okay, so so that's one way that you can get that shed approved, sort of as a separate standalone. Otherwise, I'll, Maureen, if it's still amenable to you, I'll entertain a motion to continue the hearing to early May.
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move to continue this hearing on 572 Summer Ave to the first meeting in May.
Second that.
Andrew
Okay,
Driven in favor.
I'm sorry, hold on. Is there any discussion on that? I wasn't sure, Chuck, if there's something you wanted to add.
Yeah, I wanted to know from the applicant if the changes that the commission asked for will be also available on this plan for the first meeting in May? Or is it only a discussion about the wetland line at that point?
No, I'm gonna discuss with JC about the possible revisions to the driveway as discussed this evening, plantings, infiltration.
And then
And,
have a revised plan available for the first meeting in May. Is that where you're going?
yes, that's the objective.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Andrew.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Martha Moore in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor. Okay,
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
thank you.
I'd like to thank the commission for tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
JC. Thanks, JC. Okay. So this is the next one anyways, but I think that we should, Brad Thompson's been online. This is a request for a certificate of compliance at 48 Woodland.
Okay. I'm asking him to unmute.
Hello, good evening, everybody.
Mr. Thompson, hi, good evening. Just introduce yourself for the sake of the record, please.
Absolutely, Brad Thompson. My wife and I own 48 Wilson Street here in Reading.
Okay.
Do you want to
And
give us a little of the background of how we got here?
Absolutely. First and foremost, thank you, Chuck, for everything and getting me on here so quickly. Long story short, my wife and I purchased a home, this home about 5 years ago. It was never brought to our attention that there were open permits. We didn't even have an occupancy permit. This literally all fell through the cracks. So I recently have, in the process of trying to sign a PNS for this property, when the purchaser's attorney unearthed all this information. So I've been struggling, running around frantically trying to do everything I need to do to get fire inspection. Everything goes back to an addition that was done in 2003. And nothing was closed out. Not everything was closed out. So that's kind of how this all came about from about almost 20 years ago. So I literally have purchased a second property already, and I'm kind of stuck here, just trying to see what I need to do to make this right, so I can legally sell this property.
okay, are you familiar with the? Are you familiar with the order of conditions and that's filed on this property?
Chuck has been very patient trying to walk me through all this.
Okay.
I know there's any wetlands to begin.
But there was a time crunch on this, and Brad has, like a lot of people, they're surprised when this happens. It's not something that he even knew. And then, of course, I think didn't you call me on the day you were closing or something like that? And
Yes.
there was nothing I could do about it on that day. But I think that we've done a good job to provide this information within a week.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any commissioners have comments, but again, there's not too much to be said considering we're not really part of the original order of conditions. We don't have any, institute.
Okay. So there's no erosion. The proposed addition was completed. I think based on what the applicant has, what's been provided, I believe that satisfies the order of conditions, and we can, obviously the work's been finished. There's no ongoing problems that would impact the wetlands. So
Sure.
I think this one is fine to, issue a certificate of compliance for.
And I'd like to add one more thing if I could. I forgot to tell you the resource area.
Well,
And the resource,
yeah,
the resource area is the riverfront, and we're in the outer riparian zone, way out, like
Yeah.
160, 170 away. So
I'll entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for this. Or if there's any additional discussion on it.
Can I just ask which direction the riverfront is from this property?
it's north.
Okay.
In the summertime, I can't even see it. I don't even see it from my property unless I go to my neighbor's property.
Yeah. I mean, outer is pretty far away. So I don't know if anyone knows where this area is, but it's down Lowell Street and where the old PNS used to be. It's kind of that stream that you cross over just before PNS. And that actual stream is actually called the Abajona River. So
It's slightly uphill from
yeah.
ENS.
Yeah. So yeah, that's mostly I think we went over it pretty well. If there's any questions, we could do our best to look at the information we have to answer those.
I would like to move to issue a certificate of compliance for this property.
Second that. I mean, before we vote on it, I just note how strange this is. I know it's unusual, but it's really hard to do an honest vote on this. Do we have any idea? So the original order was for a deck addition back in 2003?
An addition and a deck.
An addition and a deck.
Mm-hmm.
And it never got closed. See, I mean, it does raise some flags that something went on, but long time ago, don't really understand what happened. So
the only thing that didn't happen is the homeowner, in my opinion, based on doing this for a long time, and I just think it was a money issue. I think that it costs a certain amount of money to get a as-built plan. It's not built into the original price. And so when he was this is a 2003 order of conditions. And Fran Fink, my predecessor, started sending letters, but the final letter she sent was in 2009. Now the property wasn't sold. Was it 2013 or 2016? I'm not sure which one it was.
The letter you're referring to is actually, it's 2008 was a letter that you showed me. It doesn't matter one year, obviously. I purchased it, we purchased it in 2016.
2016. So
yes,
there was a lot of years without any. I mean, obviously the original owner figured he got away with it, or it wasn't needed. It wasn't picked up in the title search. So there you go. But to answer your question, I think that we do have a lot here. We know what went on. We have the order of conditions. It was for an addition and a deck. When here we are, we have an as-built plan that shows an addition and a deck exactly as it was shown in the application, you know, to these dimensions.
Okay,
so
makes me more comfortable.
Yeah.
All right.
We're not guessing. There was no changes. And one of the questions I asked Brad was, did you do any work on the property? And he said he did not, and he didn't cut down trees either. So I don't have any way to verify that, but I'm taking his word for it. And certainly he didn't do any work on the property because this is a current plan.
Yeah, and Andrew, in my time on conservation, this actually does regularly pop up.
Okay.
Pretty steadily. I'm not saying it's every meeting, but it's
comes up.
It comes up.
Not new. All right.
And the ones from the 70s, those are the ones that we really try to solve. No, but I'm just joking about that. There's no way to solve those. As a matter of fact, as the ones from the 70s, they're only asking that you provide a letter requesting a certificate of compliance. None of this other stuff is asked for, like an as-built plan or a letter from an engineer. So you're not even getting someone else to kind of take ownership of the responsibilities of the order of condition.
Yeah.
So those usually go right through with a site visit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was a motion.
There was.
correct?
Yeah.
Was
I
there a
seconded it. So Andrew Gibbon in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
All right, so Brad, you're all set. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank
And,
you all for your time.
Brad, I'm assuming you want to pick that certificate of compliance up on Tuesday?
The sooner the better. Yes, sir. You tell me. when.
Yeah, if you come into the office on Tuesday, it will be available. If you contact me prior to that, I'll make sure that so for Tuesday is my first day in the office from after today. So I'll be able to do that. And if you just contact me in the morning, it'll be ready whenever you need it, or anytime after Tuesday.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for your time. Thank you, Chuck. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Okay. Chuck, what else do we have?
We have a few things.
Let's take a couple and then let's adjourn early so we can.
I got to get all these through. I'm going to start with this. So the Chris Cole has sent us an email, and the forest cutting has impacted the causeway. So there's big ruts in it because the ground thawed, and the heavy machinery spread that out and made basically ruts from a good bit. They want to fill that up with stone. This was approved by the Conservation Commission the last time it happened prior to the work, in anticipation that there may be some issues. This time, the causeway looked fine, but the weather warmed up enough, and there's this one they want to take care of. So he wants to put in some 2-inch stone. They weren't able to find the larger stone. And there was a comment made by one of the other engineers saying that people wouldn't be able to walk across the larger stone. It would just become an issue and a tripping hazard. So they're going to go with 2-inch stone and fill that up. So they just wanted the approval from the commission to do that work inside the existing. It's like a fire road, but it's on the causeway. Brian, you know where it is if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, I mean, real quickly, there's several causeways in there. This is the one closest to the compost yard itself. So if you go out the back of the compost, down the hill to the T, you turn left, it's that causeway.
Which actually gets extremely close to the actual wetland.
Yeah,
I mean,
both sides.
It is wetland actually for
Yeah.
a large.
Yeah, so it's on both sides, yeah.
So, so I just have a concern that I've seen this done before. I'm fine with the process as long as stone doesn't accidentally start filling the wetland, and it all stays on the road.
Well, so this is my opinion. Chuck can obviously add his own again, but they're deep ruts because the hauler had really wide tires, and so it's fairly deep. So if they fill that with stone, unless they overfill it, which I don't think they're going to do, it's not likely the stones can go uphill for the most part and then into the wetlands. I can imagine you can see some kids throwing a stone every now and again, or maybe one popping off a bike tire, but pretty minimal. So I think that's a relatively safe assumption.
Yep, as long as I don't know if you've seen behind Perico Group, there's a stone road that was constructed out into the wetlands. That was filling. Like, I just want to make sure the stone stays on.
Sure.
Just as long as they do their normal good job, everything will be fine.
I agree with
Yeah, yeah, someday you should hear that story. So, so can I just get, I think it does need like an approval or a vote to do that.
Is there a motion?
So I'll make a motion that we approve the DPW bringing some stone into the causeway nearest the compost yard.
To fill in the ruts. I'll second that.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Great. The second thing is that Joe Carnahan wants us to approve him to speak as the commission's liaison with the finance committee.
I'm grateful Joe's taken this on as to delve into the mechanics of figuring out how to get us a steady operating budget. And so he's working on exploring how that happens and what's the best way to set that up. So especially since he took a spearhead on this, I think he's the right person to continue it. So I move that we vote him as liaison.
A second that.
Us, not just in finance committee, but also in front of the select board as well. And other town committees.
So amended.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
So at the Coolidge Middle School, they have a field in back of that. And then at the edge between the school property and private property, there's a stream. This is like the zone of the head of the Abidjona River. And so that field has been designated as one that needs a little bit more use. And they would like to put some lights out there, dusk to 10 o'clock, dusk to 9 o'clock is what I was told by Jenna. And the locations will be reviewed after they're in place. But the comment I got was that they're going to try to keep them, there's not much room, so this is not, and they're portable lights so that, you know, to know how much spillage goes in back or in the wetlands, we don't have that kind of information on this. These are portable lights, and it's just so the field can be used more efficiently. So the only accommodations that they could make, given that, was that it would be from dusk to 9 o'clock, and that they will push the lights as close to the field as they felt it was safe for people to use the field. So, you know, someone running off the field can't run into one of the lights. There's, you know, if you look at that field, you can see that there's only like one, the backside, which was north, would be the only area that's close up against the river and has the least amount of room. So they're looking for an approval to set up those lights on a temporary basis between dusk and 9 o'clock at the Coolidge Middle School.
Chuck, do you think it's going to be doing some significant rutting back there? And what's the nearest resource area?
I think you're going to be within 20 feet of a resource area. And the field looks like it extends right up to a stream, which is the head of the Abidjona. So it's just a stream at that point because of the drainage area. So there would be a 100-foot jurisdiction, but it would be sitting on existing lawn. It would be sitting on mowed lawn, previously disturbed, previously developed, all that.
It's flat.
Yep, they run on diesel, and there's like something like 88 gallons of diesel that go in there, and facilities or Mike Hannaford's crew would be filling them up one of those two. So it would be a town, you know, a town person that would be doing that. So if any spills or anything like that would be reported. I did ask them to look into an appropriate size spill kit. Jenna thought that for the amount of time that they were using them, that they wouldn't need to be refilled with diesel fuel, that would last the whole season, but they may have to have a little bit more. I certainly wouldn't take any more than, you know, one additional fill up. And I don't even think all of that would be used.
I think any refilling that has to be done should be done outside of the buffer zone for the resource area and on pavement.
So,
It's
yeah,
brought in.
so we thought that we would do that. So they're going to come in filled. And I anticipated that question. So that's why they're having the spill kit. And they thought that they would, if there was an issue with that, they would buy like a pan or something that goes under it. I do remember from the bridge, which is on, I can't think of the name, it escapes me. Remember the bridge they just did over by Cumberland Farms, whatever that road is.
Road?
Track, yes. So they had something that was their gas tank was contained within that unit and had like a separate cell around it. So spilling wasn't possible. So we're looking into that, but we're also looking into getting a pan underneath in case that happens and having that spill kit available if any spills happen. So the likelihood of these things being pulled in and out of that area is slim to none.
Okay. I'm just gonna go off video for a sec to get a battery.
Sure. So any comments on that? I mean, I'm not telling you got to accept this. You tell me what you think about all that.
So Chuck, well, what season are they talking about?
I'm assuming this is right through the season, right? One whole entire season, starting
So
when
you
the
mean
field's
spring-
open.
Spring, summer. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
which
spring,
one is it?
summer, and fall. Yeah.
Okay. And just to your comment about spillage being impossible with that other tank, you know, it can spill inside and they don't know it, and then the outer tank springs a leak, so it is possible. Maybe it's
Oh
less.
no, I
likely,
understand
but
anything is
possible.
possible,
Yeah.
but
Less likely.
I think it was anticipated, and I think that these units, the most important part of that is to just get to the person, I'm just going to say the DPW person, I'm not sure if that's who it is, and explain, you know, what we need, and to make sure that they understand that this is something that we take seriously and there shouldn't be any diesel spillage. So this is, they've had them elsewhere, but not near the resource area. So I don't actually know this process.
So going back to the lights, shining out into the resource area, I assume that's at least a minor concern. You were saying that the portable, we don't have any data on what that is. Any concern at all about them not getting turned off some night? I don't know who's responsible for turning them off.
Yeah, so I guess the key or the ability to turn these things on and off is probably the coach. And I don't think they'll be left on because, you know, obviously the police will say, hey, what's going on with the lights in the back of the Coolidge?
Yeah, they're actually
Yeah.
burning their own fuel, so it's unlikely they would keep it going, but I'm just trying to
But
think. of what it
just
is.
like you said, anything is possible, and that I just have to, I mean, because it's so open, I have to keep in more in touch with Jenna about how this is working. And obviously, it seems like lights are needed and field time is needed. And so we might see this elsewhere near resource areas also where other fields are.
So let me ask this question. In an ideal world, would we prefer that they had permanent lights there rather than these portables? Or is that more light pollution than you'd want to have?
Well, there's a vast difference between the Musco lights that are designed for the field and talk about, you know, they're designed so there's minimal spillage. And when they provide the photometrics for such lighting, you can see from the numbers that in back of the lights that the numbers just drop right off, 0 point whatever and things like that. These type of lights, you're going to see 5 point something, 6 point something, 7 point something. And the problem is this is more of, so I assume these lights are the type of lights that go at construction projects or highway projects.
Right.
So it's not really designed for these areas. So yes, I think that we would prefer to see actual lighting there designed for that field. It would be better for us and the neighbors.
So then is there any benefit to us attaching that condition to the approval? Basically saying, yes, we'll approve it for this season, but if you want to keep on doing it year after year, we wouldn't approve it. Does that help?
I think that's a great condition. I'm not sure they could do it in next year. I think it has to be gone, there's a process through town that may take a design. I don't know when the capital plan says improvements to this field will happen. It's all that we don't know about. I think that you could say something, we're going to approve this, but we would like you to look into formalized lighting at this field so we can reduce, spillage and whatnot. I also want you to know that lighting is not discussed in the Wetlands Protection Act.
Right.
So although it would seem to be something, and it should be discussed, because like I said, if you're getting your cues from the moon and it's been replaced by some field light, if you're an owl or something like that, you're gonna have some crazy nights.
I agree, and I like the idea of at least telling them that it's not a rubber stamp they can keep forever, just so they feel some urgency to work it into the plan. I recognize that there's a process, but
there is actually a plan. The Birch Meadow Master Plan includes turning that field behind Coolidge into an artificial turf field, and I am sure it will include lights. I don't remember the lights specifically, but I can't imagine they would make a turf field and not light it. So it's in the master plan. It's just a question of when it's funded.
So we want to be involved in that conversation early and often. What's happening now throughout the state is that they're either not approving artificial turf or they're approving it with organic infill. And that's making a big difference. Man, there's a lot of problems with the volatile compounds that are in the infill and the blades themselves, and it affects the kids, and it also affects small animals and other things. So just that would be a great conversation. Other communities have had extremely long discussions inside their conservation meetings about these synthetic turf fields. It's no longer, that's been solved, we're all over that.
Yeah.
But you almost have to be two chemists talking pros and cons about these, and right now we don't have one.
All the data I've seen on synthetic turf fields are, from the way I've read it, is sure, it's got a tremendous benefit to expand seasonality and use of the area. That is like the hugest benefit, is you can run on it, you can use it during the muddiest of days, right? So you get to really maximize even the bad weather days for the sports purposes. The downsides are the materials leach metals. I mean, they're even saying PFAS in a couple of situations, the new forever chemical that's all over the news. And it's a source of contamination, it at a minimum, to the water underneath when the water percolates through, which means it's a release to the environment. It's a release to the wetlands, right? Because that water goes to the wetlands. And then at the end of its life cycle, it's incredibly expensive to dispose of. So the cost to get rid of it, I mean, it just seems there is a tremendous benefit in the use for, over its lifespan. However, the environmental costs, installing it, maintaining it, disposing of it, are kind of all over the place.
Well, I always have to wonder what the additional count is of torn ACLs and what have you because of the extra grip, but that's not an environmental issue.
There's really no substitute for real dirt. You know, it's got some good stuff going on with it too. But anyway, we're going a little bit off track. I don't mind, as long as we come back to what you need, Chuck. Chuck, do you need us to vote on something, or is there any
Yeah,
other?
Brian had a suggestion that we vote to approve, but ask them to formalize the lighting. We would like to see a more formalized lighting apparatus out there to cut down on some of the light spillage and the impact to the environment. And Brian, if you want to add something to it, please do. That's what I got from what you said.
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is it's not just light spillage, it also reduces the risk of fuel spillage as well. So
Sure,
overall, it's better environmentally, it seems like.
And exhaust, right? Because it's burning off the diesel, right? So,
Sure. Yeah.
so
Okay. Let's see, where am I at with this?
is there a way to make? I was around when they approved the lights in between the track and the stream on the other side of the street from there, and those were extremely extra expensive to install, because as they were installing the footings for those lights, which, as you can imagine, because they're so high, and the wind shear, those are deep footings. You need some good deep digging there to get a good solid foundation. The riverbank started caving in because they were dewatering.
Yeah.
Quicksand, messy, so if we're gonna, one of these days, if we talk about putting lights behind Coolidge, dewatering there, and what's gonna happen when you dewater, that's gonna be something to think about too. So it's all these pluses and minuses to that. But anyway, so
Still going.
so
Sorry about that, but
I'll take a motion to approve the portable lights as discussed tonight.
I'll make a motion to approve the portable lights with the condition discussion that we had.
Great.
I'll second.
Okay, Andrew Drippin in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
I don't know what else is on your agenda, Chuck, but I would love to have us approve the 3 sets of minutes we had a chance to read.
sure, I have at least one more thing. So, and these need to happen, and so do the minutes. So thank God it's only 10. Here we go. I just need your opinion about this. This is Dave Fazio's application. I hope you can see it. So he's 118 Lila Lane. He came in for all of this work, and he wants to make a change. He wants to take the fence that's on the 35-foot offset area right here. He wants to take that fence out and move it to where the red line is along the back. So people walk this area. This was the one that we had to verify the wetland line basically against ourselves. And these are the plants that went in. It's in back of the plants and kind of in back of that mulch area too. But no trees are coming down. So I said I would bring this to the commission's attention. Not sure what your thoughts are. He does have a active order of conditions. It can be a minor plan change. It could be something where you just say, go ahead and do it, and we'll pick it up on the certificate of compliance. Or you could ask him to come in and present this formally to the commission and have time to review it and have time to look at the plan. So it's only along this one side here, across the back. This is pretty much right up against, you probably can't go back any further because there's kind of like a roughage area back here.
Yeah.
And then it meets up against an existing fence. So that's why it's not in this area here.
So as I recall from the original conversation, we talked a lot about the fence he was putting in. We were actually asking him to move it a little bit so it wasn't in the no structure zone. So why does he want to move it now well into the forbidden zone?
So that forbidden zone is actually lawn in this case, and it's used by the kids, and it's just, it's instead of having like two separate areas, that the fence that needs to go around the pool can go around the yard. It will count as the pool fence, and they'll still have the use of the entire yard without having kind of like to break it open.
But isn't that, they already were planning on a gate, kind of where the two green places have a gap? Wasn't that going to be a gate there anyway?
Yep.
So wouldn't that give them access to the bottom of the lawn?
I'm not saying they don't have access. They're just, if they had their choice, they would prefer the fence to be in this area.
So
I mean,
are
I
you
didn't ask
saying-
him many questions about
Yeah.
the reasons behind it. It seems, I can understand why he'd want it, but I don't know the particulars about it.
So is the fence that was proposed before not going to exist? He's
Correct.
gonna not build that fence and only build this bigger one?
Yes,
Um,
closer to the resource area, but
yeah.
again, on existing, previously developed area, not expanding the footprint of the usable area. It's just considering, the yard and how it's being used now and the most appropriate spot for the fence. It, really, it's just to keep the kids in that whole area.
So Chuck, down where that edge of lawn is, he already had a lot of plantings.
Mhm.
We asked him to do additional plantings. So what's going to happen?
This
about
fence is going in back of all the planting.
So it won't affect current
No.
and new plantings at all?
Yeah.
What kind of fence?
Hold on. Yeah, maybe I have it.
About yay high.
Mm.
A fence.
Yeah. Separating,
Well, it has to be tall enough to be safe to keep people out of the pool. So that's like 5 feet or something. There's a minimum height for fences when you have a pool.
So presumably they have some accommodation for critter traffic.
So he's saying we want to, it's for safety. He's got 2 young children, wildlife and coyotes. They just want to block off the entire yard and protect the kids from the wildlife.
I'm tired of coyotes being used as the villains in all these dramas.
I'm not comfortable approving a fence all the way right up to and including the wetland line on
Oh,
this.
it's
it's gonna separate the proposed plantings from the habitat it's trying to flourish around. It really makes no sense to me. If he wants to put it at the 35 foot, we can talk about that, but
I think it is
I'm
at the
not in favor
35
of
foot
being
now.
at the wetland line.
Yeah, so
Put it all the way across at the 35 foot.
Okay.
He's putting it. So
All right, I'm just gonna say, I don't think it's safe to have his kids playing in the backyard with the pool and the backyard not having a fence between them. I wouldn't mind him having some additional fence, but I think he's asking for drowned kids if he takes the fence away that's surrounding the pool. You let your kids play in the backyard and there's a pool but with no fence keeping the kids out of the pool. So I don't think that's a safe
That's,
setup.
so that's not something that we have.
Jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's not, I mean,
Yeah.
It's a good safety point. but
yeah,
it's their purview,
but you can't, yeah, I wouldn't base it on that. I would try to, have something.
Yeah, I'm not sure how old
Different.
his kids are anyway.
Can you show that plan again, Chuck?
I'm just trying to find the fence picture, so maybe this, yeah, I'll show the plan, sorry. Let me get
Yeah,
back
Andrew,
to you
weren't on the
guys.
commission when we approved this project, right?
No.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know where you guys are. Can you see that, by the way? No? No,
No.
okay, so let me get back.
I just wish the homeowner was on the call, so, we could ask him more
Here we go.
questions. Could
Well, the
we
whole thing
continue
is this was just an initial talk. If you're uncomfortable, I have to tell him he's got to come to the meeting. If you say, have a permit, then that's what I have to say that. So this is just asking you what your opinion is, and this is the fence he's proposing, if you can see that.
Yeah.
Okay. And this was the original site plan. I have to find the other one to find the right one. So let me go back.
Do I see two fences like right next to each other in the original site plan? There's like a.
One's the erosion control.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what
The
I'm
thing
saying.
that looks
Okay.
like sausage links is the erosion control, and then the fence
And
has
the fence is
existing
here.
plantings inside it.
Yeah.
Well, that's a big ask.
Can a fence be put across the drainage easement?
That's erosion control.
No,
Yeah.
Doc.
This fence
new one.
exists. We are not ruling on that.
Dash
It-
line drainage easement written in between the contours 82 and 83 in the backyard.
The drainage easement, my recollection on this was drawn in so conservatively that Ryan allowed the fence. He believes that this drainage easement prior to this neighborhood was drawn way out here, but really it's the pond you see behind the edge of lawn. So Ryan accepted this drainage swale and not this drainage easement line. So
That's tricky. Okay.
yeah, I just think it was when they designed it, it was bigger and it was never reduced on some of the plans. So it should just show where the water is now, to say it, or the drainage easement is now. Let's get back to that original plan, which I think is right here.
That was the first one that I was involved with, where we saw the yard waste in the next door neighbor's yard.
Yes.
That's
Can you
what
see this
started
plan now
whole
with a
thing.
red?
Yes.
Yeah,
we
I
can
see that.
Okay.
that plan. I guess I'd like to have him come and talk to us about it, because
Okay.
we have enough concerns.
Okay. I'm going to be sending out a letter from Keolis, and they're going to do their yearly operational maintenance plan. This has been looked at many times, and the last time they came through, we actually asked them to identify an area by Millet that extended their no spray area for pesticides and herbicides, because we were concerned about the wetlands being right there. They had done that. So it's looked at a lot, but basically the letter says, hey, we're going to be on the train tracks. Check out your maps. If there's any areas that you know about that we've, missed, let us know and we'll adjust our maps. But the guys are coming through to cut down anything that's growing on their easement. And then what they can't cut, They usually spray to keep that vegetation down. I'll be sending that out, Keolis, not in the morning, but I'll have to do it I may be able to do it in the morning, but most likely on Tuesday. That's what I have.
Okay. I just wanted to mention before we adjourn that I got a letter about an open space and recreation plan sort of forum. You know, they're looking for feedback on it on the 28th.
It's a virtual forum. They want you to go to it and watch it and then make comments. That's in the phone number on the bottom is yours truly.
Okay.
So
it's an opportunity for feedback, which I think is a good thing. And I want to encourage any members of the public who happen to be watching this to look into it. The open space recreation plan comes in handy when we're strategically thinking about how we want to move forward with managing or obtaining open space land. So think about it, dream a little, give some feedback, comment early and often. And yeah, so we don't need to post it if let's say, assuming 4 of us go, Chuck, do we have to post it?
I don't know what you're reading. You're not going anywhere. It's a virtual forum.
It's not a discussion. It's just feedback. Okay.
Yeah. So, and we've been doing the open space and recreational plan for a while. As a matter of fact, it was me and Kim Honderschlager that was in charge of doing it. Kim's retired, so I'm doing it.
Yep.
I'm finishing it, and we're almost finished. And Kim was there for 90% of it, and all the hard work is done. Thank you, Kim. But there's just this forum, which is a virtual forum, and I think we need EJ community map and to update a recreational plan. But we're still taking comments, and there's actually the draft up there too. And if you have any comments, it would be appreciated. It's not going to be open too much longer. I think it's just the end of this month for the virtual I don't know, discussion, the virtual forum for the discussion. Yeah, it's put together with Horsley Witten. It's a good review of what we're doing. I think you'd enjoy it. It's pretty high end. So
okay,
do that. Yeah.
Can you access it through the conservation website or how?
Yeah, right on the town webpage. You can look at their notes, and it's in there also, but it's also on any email that I sent you in my signature line. There's a link on that'll take you right to the forum page, and then you'll be able to access the forum.
So it's another thing to read and review and comment on, because your opinion matters. So can we get to the minutes and
just do them individually, like I always ask. Okay.
All right, let's do them individually. Starting, where do we start? Should we start with the 9th? I know Joe had some comments on the 9th. February 9, 2022. All 12 pages of minutes.
Joe, Martha, and Brian, you had comments.
Yeah.
I thought it was Brian. Yep. So we have comments. So if that, I don't know if anyone else has comments, but if they do, you'll have to send them to me. And outside of that, we could approve them with those comments that were made from Joe, Martha, and Brian.
I move we approve them with the comments already received.
I second that motion.
Andrew Driven, I approve. I'm in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. Okay, the next set is January 26th, right?
Mhm.
I was not around for that meeting, so
I read the minutes and I did not see any issues with them. So
I
move-
read them. I didn't really get into them because I was reading them to find information for my enforcement letters. So in the reading I didn't see anything for what it's worth.
So I move that we approve the minutes of January 26th as written.
I'll second that one too.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. All right, the next one is January 2, 12. What's the other one?
January 12th.
January 12th.
I move that we approve the minutes of January 12th as written.
I'll
Second that.
second.
Andrew Driven in favor.
Brian Bowe in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Nika Scanlon in favor. Do we dare continue?
Those are all the ones I have seen recently. I don't think.
That's
the
it.
others were
That's
made.
it.
Yeah.
That's it,
I
because
didn't want to overwhelm you guys.
the agenda has a couple of them from August through November.
But we did, I think we did, so we got those three. I think we're really only looking at some of these older ones being worked on at this point. The rest of them are in the queue to be reviewed, and I'll send them out to you. So there's at least two from that list already done. And we'll have this meeting also at the next. So we'll have another 3 to review. And then maybe within 1 or 2 more meetings, we'll be completely caught up on those past ones.
Fabulous.
So, yeah, so I think which is great.
Okay.
And then Anika, please feel free to do the first hour again
Yeah, got it.
on a sleepless night.
I've got, it's easier to do when you twice when you speed up the playback speed.
I've been taking some notes on this meeting that might help with making the minutes. And I will make an attempt to send them to you, Chuck.
Okay.
Thank you, Martha.
Yeah, I think it was great. Somehow getting 1 hour off helped out a lot. So
Well,
and
it's something.
it was something. Yeah, it was more than something. It was like, well, now I have no excuses.
Well, is there anything else anybody else wants to bring up? No? Okay. I'll take
So
a.
I have a question actually for Chuck. Did you get those letters out? I know they're last minute. Are you doing them next couple of days? Or?
I did not get the letters out. I'm probably going to end up, it'll probably be Tuesday. I mean, I can work on them tomorrow if there's anything that needs to be added to them or formatted in some way. But sending them out would happen on Tuesday.
Okay.
So I can't even tell you how slow town hall mail is these days with this.
No, that's
So we get back
there,
4 days a week. It's crazy.
there were 2 in particular because they were different. There was one that is the only one so far sent to somebody who did not come to the meeting when they were asked. So that
was the latest one. You remember just sent that
right.
to me.
Yeah, that's that one. And then there was the one where the owner on Oak Ridge told us that his neighbor on Oak had a structure across a stream. So on that one, I said potential violation, and invite us for a site visit, and I asked them to coordinate with you. So that's a little bit different also.
Yeah, so I haven't heard from any of these people, so we're gonna obviously have to think about next steps and what ends up happening when someone doesn't reply at all.
No, I mean, so the one on Oak, they haven't gotten anything yet, so that's fine, just the letter is different, so looking at it to be sure and stepping myself would be useful. The one on 126 Hanscom was the one where I asked them to come and they didn't. They're the only one so far who has chosen not to make an appearance. In the letter, I gave them the out that perhaps they were on and waiting and just didn't go to 12:30. So I gave them an excuse to have missed it once and be coming next time. But anyway, those two are different. So if you glance over ahead of time, that'd be helpful.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And the town forest cutting is all done. And the hauling
Oh, it's finished?
finished.
Yep.
Oh,
He
so,
He did 2 days of cutting, 5 days of hauling and chipping. For the most part, it was one guy, the owner operator, doing the bulk of the work. He drove the machine to harvest them. He drove the machine to haul them. He drove the machine to chip them. So the only help he had was the people who drove the semis to carry the chips away. So 4.5 acres culled in 6 days.
that's a lot of work.
Yeah, so there's some cleanup that has to be done, and there's an upcoming maintenance day. I think it's Earth Day. They're trying an Earth Day event. I'm not sure it's on Earth Day.
It's April 30th, and they have asked for people to do some work in the town forest, and they're going to steer them. There's an area where there's 2 depressions. One is bigger and looks like it's more clearly a potential vernal pool. Right near it, there's one that is not as obviously so, and a lot of branches fell into there and got left. That is, we did stand around for a while and have conversation about lessons learned. One of the lessons learned is we have to be sure that things like a vernal pool are marked on the map, because the operator said he came over the ridge, he was dropping trees straight in front of him. He didn't know there was a pool on the other side of the ridge because it wasn't on the map. So it's unfortunate, because I know for a fact that it was discussed in another committee's meeting and just didn't get marked.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, we learned a lesson. It's going to be written into the order of conditions. So we have a couple of comments that will be in the next order. I've already updated the old order. So when that's pulled up, those comments will be in there. We just want to, the other one that we talked about was they laid down all the cut pines on the wetland side. And we're like, well, why did you do that? So we wanted to give a width of disturbance. And it was one of the comments that we had. And then they talked, if this operator didn't come back, they talked about a particular piece of machinery that gave them a lot of access to make turns and whatnot. It wasn't like a static cutting machine. It was mobile, and that he said that's what's needed to be up in this area. All in all, I thought they did a good job. They seemed very conscientious about the project, but there's a lot more material left around, and the ruts are really deep because of the warm weather. So the Trails Committee has already started asking questions about how is this going to get cleaned up, who's going to do it, how are we reestablishing the trails. And I think that the Town Forest Committee said, well, we have this work day and let's look at it at that point. But I think it'll talk, the commission will need to, partner up with the Trails Committee and advocate for their, what they want done. I feel like the trails need some work. I think there's a lot of debris out there, and you know, we could either have the DPW go back out, or we can do it on that work day. So that's where that's at. So you should take a look at the cutting. I know that me and Brian definitely looked enough. Brian,
Yeah.
that dog's been walked, you know?
Yeah, I did 113,000 steps last week. Yeah, so I mean, I was out there twice a day, each day that he was there. I brought him donuts one day, but I didn't dare get near the machinery.
So he threw it at him.
No, I ate him.
There you go.
But actually,
Thank
a point of interest is, so on one of the visits, the senior forester for the state, Laura Dooley, came. And just as we were walking around and we were talking about the debris that was left, she said by state law, when you're cutting pine, you can leave up to 2 feet of slash. Now, I know my first reaction to that was pieces 2 feet long. I think, Chuck, you might have had the same impression based on one of your reactions. They mean 2 feet deep. 2 feet deep of debris is allowable under state law. And if you're cutting other trees besides, then it's 4 feet. You can have 4 feet of slash of debris, and that's acceptable by state law. So I didn't realize that. That surprised me.
So that could be a condition, now that we know that you know, they could have that condition, but the Conservation Commission, and we would only be within the jurisdictional areas that we could enforce that, but in these areas we wouldn't want that. I'm not sure it causes a problem, but that we'd want to do some investigation on that. I know that it would cause a problem for a trail, for sure.
Right. So the 2 trails that were most impacted is the so-called Ridge Trail. That one was impassable until he actually went in with the hauler to take the logs out. In the process of doing that, he ran over the slash and it became better. In fact, just by coincidence, one of his tire trails actually ended up being a semi-reasonable path in and of itself on top of the ridge. The other one that was, in my opinion, much more impacted was what the maps call the cross-country ski trail. I don't call it that, but that one, the end nearest the fire circle, that is impassable. There's so much slash there. In fact, they were talking with the guy about, could he move some debris to make a different ending to that path, which I don't think he did. But so those two, that's the 2 biggest impacts from the walk-in perspective.
And comparing that when Mayor Tree did it, there was less slash, but more snow and more frozen ground. I mean, although it was a warmer winter too, it was more. And so I think the one operator ended up being some of the reason why so much material was left behind. And you know, Mayor had a lot more people in the woods doing their work. Not to say it's a bad job. It's just that, and actually it probably was a better job with these people, but the material that needed to be picked up, that has to be anticipated the next time also.
Right.
Say we were spoiled.
I did talk to my new best buddy, the owner operator, Paul, and I asked him whether this job was worth his company doing. So in other words, would he be bidding on a similar kind of project in the future? And he said yes, but he would like to see a loosening up of some restrictions. He said the fact that it was uncertain when he could start based on the ground being frozen was an issue. It made it hard for him. One of the so-called lessons learned is perhaps starting the process earlier, so approval would be in place earlier, so he'd be able to move, or whoever would be able to move, taking advantage of frozen ground even earlier in the year rather than starting on Valentine's Day. So, I mean, he has interest in doing it again. But he has some things he'd like to see different as well.
And so they got,
Welcome to climate change.
yeah, so they got $50,000 to do this project, and they used 20 something of it. And they're going to use the rest of the money for a study, or some part of that money for a study. And I asked Chris Cole for us to be involved in that, initial discussions of the study, because there might be something that the commission is interested in adding to that study. So that's something for the DPW meeting too. So that needs to be added to our list, Brian. And so we have a
Writing it
bunch of,
down right now.
yeah, we have a couple of things for these DPW meetings coming up. So.
Okay. And Chuck, I'm a little concerned about the March 9 meeting. It's going to be, I don't want another marathon meeting. I really want to pace some of these projects out if at all possible. So keep me updated on how those postponements are happening and what progress is happening.
So can I ask a question about that, Chuck, before you give us some useful facts?
I was probably going to answer your question, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, we'll see. Do we always have to continue it to the next meeting? Oh, he's not necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was anticipating that question. So, so the regulations say that once we've accepted a application, we have 21 days to make a decision on that, yes or no. And that's why we ask the applicant if they would like to continue,
Right.
because then they're extending that time. So everything on the list, the applicant has said when they want to be. They're in the queue. There's a 21-day limit, but if we close it out on the 9th, then we have 21 days to issue. So 21 days to close, 21 days to issue. So that's how that works. So, I mean, you could go down the list and you could ask some of the regulars if they would change, move to a different meetings, but a lot of them have, the applicant doesn't want that. So we're kind of stuck with that.
It just seems like it always forces us to kind of give them short shrift because we have these huge agendas, and if you break up even 3-hour meeting, it's like you get 2.5 minutes a piece for some of these meetings.
Well, I'll tell you what I see and what I've said in the past is you guys will talk for 45 minutes on an absolutely approvable project, and you'll talk for the same 45 minutes on a project that needs a lot of discussion also. So I think that everyone looking at the projects can recognize them, what's going to pass and not, with a couple of suggestions. But on these longer ones, I mean, for instance, you could say, why did Pitman take 2 meetings?
I agree. Yeah.
That could have been one meeting and provide a plan, approved an issue, but provide a plan before we send you the order of conditions. And, you can't do anything about 1310 small lane. And Gray came up with a reason why we needed to ask them something, but that also could have been approved and issued when the plan showed up at our door, if all the other questions were asked.
So the bottom line is we have to get better at that, at both the recognition and the self-discipline to not feel like you have to say something every time and just move on some things.
Yeah, you need to make opportunity when this is happening a lot. I've heard of other people say, their commission only allows commissioners to talk one time. Everybody only talks once. They do a consent agenda. And so it's decided from the chair that these are the things that, these are the items that the select board does a consent agenda. These are the items that there's going to be no discussion about. It could be the minutes, could be minor project approvals. It could be a fence project, all those things, there's really nothing to say. And what ends up saying, the chair puts a list together, these are all on the consent agenda. The other commissioners get to say they want to talk about this one, but if they don't want to talk about them, then one vote, they're all done. So they approve the consent agenda. That could move you forward also. But ends up what happening. I think the longer projects, you know, these 1310 Main Street or something like that, you gotta have your, you know, your questions available or understood prior to the meeting, and it can't be, you know, from the front of your brain and just coming up at spur of the moment, because that's what extends these meetings too. The oh yeahs, and I might as well. let me
After
ask something else.
10:30, and
Yep.
I'd really like to leave, and if I leave, you don't have a quorum. So can I make a motion to adjourn and?
And we
can-
need more of
and
that
then-
too. Yeah. Please
I was
do.
Second that motion.
All right. Anybody in favor?
No, I'm in favor.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye. Good night.